Report with Sam Cedar.
The destiny of America is always safer in the hands of the people than in the conference rooms of any elite.
Sam Cedar.
They are unanimous in their hate for me, and I welcome their hatred.
We must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
The Majority Report with Sam Cedar.
Ever get the feeling you've been cheated?
It's Thursday, August 6, 2020. I'm Matt Leck on another Matt, Brendan, Jamie, and Matt Thursday, broadcasting probably closer to the industrially ravaged Kiwanis Canal than ever before in the heartland of America, downtown Brooklyn, USA. On today's program, another Michael throwback interview for you, this time with ANC freedom fighter Ronnie Kasrils, who has a really long list of accomplishments and positions that I won't start with. I'll let Michael take care of that in the interview, but it's about his documentary project, London Recruits, on the underground and international struggle to liberate South Africa. Also on the program, 1.2 million new people filed for unemployment last week. That's 20 straight weeks in which claims have topped 1 million. Also, the Beirut explosion appears to have been caused by an unseaworthy Russian ship that's been stuck in port since 2014, carrying 1,300 times the amount of the ammonium nitrate used in the Oklahoma City bombing. Also, Trump's lender, the fine folks at Deutsche Bank, are subpoenaed over possible extensive and protracted criminal conduct at the Trump Organization. Deutsche Bank will help them out with that. Republican operatives have been working to get Kanye on the ballot in swing states, including Wisconsin. The nation's health insurance companies, again, the fine folks at Humana, Anthem, United Health Group, are seeing double in earnings what they did last year. Somewhat relatedly, Bernie Sanders to introduce legislation that would tax gains made by billionaires during the pandemic. Also, Senate Democrats have launched an inquiry into postal service delays, and Iowa ends a voting ban on people with felony convictions. All that and more on today's Majority Report. All right, folks, we're back again. Jamie and Matt Binder will join us in the fun half, and we'll do the clip we usually do at the top of the show with them, because we're going to do the anti-communism from Disney on Boy Meets World, and I think Jamie especially would be upset if we did that without her. But hi, Brendan, how are you?
Matt, hey, how you doing? Good to hear from you. Good to see you. Especially.
Thank you.
I'm loving the new view.
Yeah, if people might not notice, but I'm a little bit higher in elevation, I should say, than normal for the show today, because I got a standing desk, and get a little bit better posture, not slouching. My desk is so low that I've had to kind of like get down low enough so I'm eye level with the very top of my monitor. And now, so hopefully that will come through in my performance on the show today. Yeah, but we don't have an ad today. We don't have a clip, so we will get right to this Michael Brooks interview with Ronnie Kasrils. Ronnie is a guy we interviewed a few times, and what I like about this is how early it was in my Majority Report career. This is February 8th.
Yeah,
February 8th, 2016. So I was there. I've been at Majority Report for about 2 months at this point, or 4 months at this point, and maybe 5. And I was only just starting to get a sense of how important this international vibe was. And this is also the first interview I remember Michael being significantly nervous for. He's very anxious about this. And I was just watching this back, and we played 2 different songs in the break, which means, and I could see Michael the entire time. So I remember in this now that we had some kind of connection issue with Ronnie in South Africa, and Michael was freaking out because this was the early Lula moment, right? Ronnie Kasrils is, I've been reading the Mark Jevisser book on Thabo Mbeki, A Legacy of Liberation. since Michael passed, because it was the first book he recommended me reading. And Ronnie Kasrils comes up in that book quite a lot, and in pretty badass ways. I hope you guys appreciate this interview now. I think you will. I'm glad to give it a second airing. But we'll go right to this now. It's about a 45-minute interview. And when we come back, we'll have Jamie and Matt Binder with us. All right.
Welcome back to the Majority Report. I'm Michael Brooks. Joining us now, and it's really an honor to be having him on, is Ronnie Kasrils. He was a member of the African National Congress's military wing from 1960 at the age of 21, and a leader in the movement in the armed struggle for the African National Congress. He was a deputy minister of defense under the government of Nelson Mandela. In 1999, he became water minister and was the minister for the intelligence services under the presidency of Thabo Mbeki, who was the second president of a democratic South Africa. Ronnie, thank you so much for joining us.
Good day.
So let's start the conversation. You're involved with a new film project called London Recruits, which documents the work that you did in the UK with a number of British students in the 1960s to sort of essentially keep the presence of the ANC alive in South Africa. Could you explain the context of where the ANC was, where the armed struggle was against apartheid at that point, and what led you to London to work with these London recruits?
Sure, but if you don't mind, you said British activists. They were recruited in London, Britain, by myself, amongst other people from the ANC. But I want to quickly add that we recruited people from many countries, including your own Danny Schechter from New York, who unfortunately died sometime last year. I met him at the London School of Economics, and he was one of the volunteers. We had young people, workers, trade unionists. He was a student at the LSE. And amongst them were Scots and Irish and Londoners and Welsh people, British people, French and Greek and Dutch and Canadians and so on. But to get to your question about the context, and what brought me to London and involvement in recruiting young activists to go to South Africa and smuggle in literature, material, leaflets, and get them distributed in some exciting ways. One has to recall the early part of 1960, that decade. You know, the world came to really know South Africa as a result of the Sharpeville massacre that killed 68 people in cold blood and wounded 200 others, African people, black people who had been protesting against the infamous pass identity laws. And Nelson Mandela and other leaders go underground, a struggle that had basically been along non-violent but very active lines, was a struggle that now embraced sabotage action on the way to the utilization of armed struggle. I was one of those involved, and with a crackdown that came with Mandela's arrest and the arrest of leaders in the Rivonia raid and trial, Sisulu and Mbeki, Goldberg, with Mandela and a number of others sentenced to life imprisonment, there was this almighty crackdown on the ANC liberation movement, South African Communist Party, and the movement was all but crushed. It certainly didn't have any ability to produce a leaflet and get it distributed. People were lying low, those who weren't in exile or in the prisons. Well, I was fortunate to escape arrest and worked in Tanzania under the leadership of Oliver Tambo for a couple of years. By 1966, he sent me to London to join with the other leaders there. I was a youngster, I wasn't a leader, but to join with Joe Slovo, Dr. Yusuf Dadu, and they were a South African group there that was attempting to revive the underground within South Africa. London, 8,000 miles away, far further away from South Africa than Tanzania, where we had our headquarters. But the lines of communication, shipping, airlines, this was very active, and Britain, the major trading partner, students from South Africa flocked to Britain, as did business people and tourists. So we hit on the idea of recruiting young, some were older, white people. They had to be fair-skinned, so as not to arouse suspicion, to move freely in this apartheid race-minded state, to send them in, some through ships, through the cruise ships, mail boats as they were called in those days, in the majority by air, as tourists. And they were welcomed, and as long as they didn't draw attention to themselves, they could move around beyond suspicion. But in those days, unlike traveling today, you could jump on a plane, you could stash anything in your suitcases. They weren't even searched. We built suitcases with false bottoms, in the bottom of which we had leaflets, and we trained these people up to distribute this material in quite imaginative ways, which we can come to. But the key thing was that the whole effort was to break through the silence of a police state and get messages through to the masses of South Africans, particularly the African, the black people, and the mixed race people who suffered so much under apartheid, to get the simple message across to them that the liberation movement was alive, that the ANC was alive, that there was hope, that we would win in the end, that they should never give up hope. So it was the inspirational messages that were required to break, as I say, the silence of the repression.
That's really...
And that's what led to this whole project.
One question that actually occurs to me as you describe this, and, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm assuming that, the people that you recruited to do this are, first of all, they're very physically, brave people. These are courageous people, very committed to their ideals, and they have leftist ideals, non-racial ideals. They're playing the role of tourists, and obviously tourists who are comfortable, I would assume either sort of entirely apolitical, to the extent anyone actually is apolitical, or maybe even supportive of the apartheid system to the extent it comes up in conversation. But then at the same time, you're recruiting kind of the most radical and the most also just, rule breaking. So as they went to South Africa, were there times where just through sort of being themselves, they maybe did arouse some suspicion, or were they like serious cadres and no problem?
Yeah, well, look, you've hit the nail on the head. First of all, they were young in the main. There were some older people who were maybe in their 30s, but in the main, these were young people, very active in their trade unions. These were the British guys, in the anti-apartheid movement, in the protests against the American war in Vietnam, in the CND, Campaign for Nuclear Disarmament movement. And quite frankly, some of them were just 19, 20, amongst them students. And amongst them this wonderful student from Brooklyn, from the Bronx, New York, Danny Schechter. Now, they were disciplined, they were serious, but they loved life. They were fun to be with, and Danny was the quintessence of that. So you put a guy like Danny into South Africa to behave like a tourist, not to draw attention to himself, as they were all told, and it's quite hard to do these things with irrepressible young people, and Danny's one of them. So he goes into a fairly cheap type hotel. We didn't have money to put them in any star hotels, and it's a hotel, therefore, that doesn't have any ensuite bathroom. It's got a bathroom facility for people on that particular floor. And he ambles down the passage to run a bath, goes back to his room, where he's got his suitcase stashed with these leaflets, and he forgets that he's running a bath. And there's all sorts of commotion, and they come to the door, and you left the tap on, and so on. And this water is down the passage, etc. So, of course, he apologizes, and the manager understands, the white manager, and disappears, because he's got his boys, in quotes, doing the job of mopping out. Right. The boys are elderly African cleaners who are down on their hands and knees mopping up the water. Our lad from the Bronx, without thinking twice, rolls up his trousers, gets down on the floor with the guys, and he starts mopping up as well. They are absolutely amazed. Right. Here's this white man who's doing this job, you see, and fortunately, there was no white person around to see it. They would have just wondered what gives with his character. When Danny gets back to London and tells me about it, God, I just can't believe it. And of course, my heart skips a beat, but then I'm laughing because he got away with it. But sure, this question of yours strikes to the humanity, because that really was an expression of the humanity of Danny Schechter, of the humanity of these young Communist League activists who were many who volunteered, trade unionists, working class background, and others from the universities who weren't in any particular party as such, but non-aligned, but leftist and anti-apartheid. And, I could regale you with some of the stories of these young British guys who get involved in similar things. I mean, if there's time, I'll give you one.
Give us another funny story. Give us
okay. There are these two brothers, the Bell brothers, Bell. I call them the Bell boys to this day. They're well into their 70s, and this is Ron and Tom. They crack jokes. They 10 to the minute. They're very dedicated in the British Young Communist League, very active in the anti-apartheid movement and in their trade union. And they've never been on a plane. They've never been outside Britain, so that's a huge adventure in itself. We put them into a similar hotel to Danny's in Cape Town, and they go about their task. The first part is reconnoitering the city to see where they can place the devices which are going to deliver these leaflets, which I said we've come to. So they're in this hotel, and they chat to the receptionist and some other woman who's working in the hotel, their age group, nice, attractive women, and they take them out, and they're in some nightclub, having their drinks.
And these are women of
relaxing.
color, I'm assuming.
Sorry?
Are these women are these black women that they're taking out?
Okay, I'm coming to that.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Not to their eyes.
Okay, sorry for stepping on your line. Go ahead.
Cape Town, you won't find in those days a indigenous black African woman in a job as a receptionist. But it's a city still to this day with a huge mixed race population. And, the color there is like the States. It's from very light right through to darker shades, and these happen to be fairly light-skinned women. They're sitting in the club and they're chilling out, and suddenly there's a police raid. The women jump up and they rush through to the toilet and get out a back way and disappear. So they've lost their dates. The next morning at the hotel, they ask them, what on earth happened? Why did you disappear? Why are you so frightened of the police? And they say, but don't you guys know? We shouldn't have been there. We're not white people. We're colored people, as mixed race people are called in South Africa. So, yeah, when I heard that story, I also cracked up, but was so thankful that it didn't lead to any calamity. It didn't happen with every group who were in the country, but quite a few incidents of this nature did occur. One of the British guys, at a time when one of the ways of distributing was breaking open your false bottom in the case, and then posting. We'd give them a mailing list, and they'd post letters to several hundred people. And he went into the post office. There's a queue for white people and then a separate queue for black people. And he stands in that queue, and a policeman's walking by and actually roughs the man up.
Oh, wow.
And says, what on earth are you doing in this queue? Get into your own queue over there, and gives him a few blows. So, the incidents of this nature do abound. But in the main, they got away with it.
So, well, let's move, because I actually, there's some other broader sort of conversations I want to get to you with. But tell us first, and then I want to draw on the importance of making this film and getting it distributed. But you have alluded to the sort of techniques that you use to get these materials into the country, how the letters were snuck in, how the pamphlets were stuck in. The goal is to basically let people know that the struggle is still happening, that the movement is still assembled and outside of South Africa, and that hope and resistance is still sort of on the move in some respects. So how did you actually get things in the country, and how did you actually execute distributing these things once they were in South Africa?
Yes, right. One can't underestimate the impact of a leaflet about freedom in a police state or a slogan on a wall. So initially, people were sent in, as I indicated, simply with leaflets in a mailing list, and they would post the leaflets. Then we evolved this to more activity. The next simple step was getting them to buy a length of calico, white material that you'd use for a banner, paint a slogan on it, the ANC lives, and instruct them how to roll that up and get on top of a skyscraper. Plenty of tall buildings around in South Africa, not like New York. I'm talking here about 10 stories or so. They are higher, but you don't want to go too high. Right. And how to then unfold this from that position so it screeches out the message from the streets. And we would train them up with some very simple timing devices to delay the unfurling of the banner. We wanted them to be away from the spot. And one simple way is tying it up with string and then dabbing a bit of acid on the string. So it'd take 5 minutes, say, for the acid to eat through. And depending on the ballast in the banner, it would unfurl, and by then the people were away down the street. This kind of activity in about 1966, 67 and so on managed to break through the silence of the press because it was quite sensational. We then went a bigger stage, and we thought of using something like a rocket, taking a leaflet up into the air and then disengaging so the load would flutter down. What we hit on ultimately, after a lot of experimentation on parks in London, when there weren't people around and so on, we basically organized what we called a bucket bomb. And we showed them how to construct this. We'd give them a little bit of some elements of this, which in the end, when they were in their hotel room, they would stuff leaflets into this bucket. Underneath the leaflets was just a little bit of a wooden guard so they wouldn't burn. From underneath that, using some black powder from a firework cracker and connecting that to a small timing device. With a fuse, the leaflets were filled in that bucket. The bucket would be put into a shopping bag, and we would tell them to leave these at railway stations, taxi ranks, bus terminuses, and the like, and to time it so that it would go off 10 minutes after they dispensed with the load, at a point in time when workers were coming out of factories or catching transport. And we would get these volunteers to work in pairs for safety. Without them knowing it, there would be others covering the major cities in South Africa. And at a particular time and day, all synchronized, something like, say, 30 of these devices would go off in, as I said, every main city. It was so sensational that this made headlines in all the South African newspapers. So that was the key way. Another very simple way was getting them to purchase tape recorders, tape players. We would have them smuggle in with the leaflets a small amplifier and a speech on tape, and instruct them to house this in a small box, find positions from ledges of buildings or garages, multi-story garages, and again, simple time device, just switch it on before leaving. The first 10 minutes would be silent, and then a speech would blare out from the amplified box, and eyewitnesses reported in the press of sensational activity in the streets as the workers voiced their support, and the police rushed around to try and find the source of this and smash it. But of course we got them to put a sign on saying that there's a bomb here, beware. So that kept the police away for some significant time. But it was this kind of activity I was referring to, this creative activity of getting the information across. It made a big impact.
Yeah, that's amazing. And so before we move off from the London recruits, and I need to get your thoughts on contemporary South Africa and actually hopefully Israel-Palestine as well, there is this film, London Recruits, which recounts these stories, your role and many other people's roles in sort of putting this together, and then more of the stories that you talked about, more of the tactics and strategies. And it's a project of kind of unbelievable internationalism. I mean, there's something so innately kind of stunning and inspiring about, Danny Schechter or a young person from the Netherlands or the UK or wherever else, being willing to sort of go on that adventure and take tremendous personal risk to overturn this obscene system. So talk about where this film is now and the importance of sort of seeing it through.
It's in the making. British company in Wales called Barefoot Rascals. The listeners can get the information on the website London Recruits, and they'll find much there about the making of this film. Funds are being collected through crowdfunding in Britain. We raised a lot of money to get the film started. There's a whole process of getting money, and already contributions are coming in from the British trade union movement, because many of the people concerned, men and women, were members and still are of their trade unions. We're appealing to people in the United States and elsewhere to assist. And the film is very important. As you've indicated, it's a story about tremendous courage. It's a story about internationalism. It reflects on those heady times of the 60s and 70s where we recruited young people from the anti-Vietnam War struggles, from the states right across the world, Britain and Europe, anti-apartheid movement. And, you know, it was a period filled with incredible spirit. People were prepared if we had contact with them. Nobody really turned us down when we said, would you prepare to go the extra step and go on a dangerous mission into South Africa and carry this message? They saw the internationalism in that. And of course, we have that need today. Yeah. That's the message of the film. It tells a story which was not very well known, and these recruits didn't brag about what they did. In fact, they felt and still feel that they didn't do very much, that the struggle in South Africa saw immense sacrifices by South Africa's own people. And, you know, it's people like Thabo Mbeki and others who have been interviewed who say that they filled an extremely important role in that period where we couldn't really organize the message ourselves within the country. By 1975, things were different, and our underground was developing, and the mass movement in South Africa was gaining headway. But that particular period had that distinctiveness. We needed so badly the support that I've referred to, as we need in the world today. I'm talking here about good, positive things. I'm talking about real international solidarity with the oppressed, with the exploited, with people who are still struggling against racism, against capitalism, countries which are very much under the heel of dictatorship. I'm not talking in any way about jihadism. This is irrational, and so on. We're talking here about internationalism where people know and understand what the issues are about, what is required, and very much it's the issue still of publicity, of information, of getting the solidarity messages across, the internationalism which we've seen across the centuries, and we saw so many times in the 20th century. So this message from the film, we hope, revives the lessons of serving a good cause, serving the truth, serving to expose those who exploit and oppress, and bring inspiration for the kind of activities we've seen in the Occupy Wall Street movement, in the anti-war movements around the world, in the protest against the absolute crying shame of 61 people in the world owning the wealth equivalent to the 3.5 billion other half of the world, bringing people together in solidarity for real democracy, meaningful participatory democracy, for a move towards socialism, anti-war, and the emancipation of humanity.
So, and it's really interesting in that the list and the motivation of this film, because that leads me to want to get your thoughts on the contemporary situation in South Africa, because you could have, frankly, quite rightly, at least in my view, after a lifetime of sort of political struggle and personal risk and then service in the first two democratic governments of South Africa, sort of, I guess, watched the game and relaxed. But you're sort of still out there, and you wrote a piece, I believe it was in 2013. It was called "How the ANC's Faustian Pact Sold Out South Africa's Poorest." And you sort of, and there's a transition here, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you sort of criticized the ANC's kind of acceptance of kind of global neoliberalism under the presidencies of Mandela and Mbeki, which you served in. That's one aspect of it, but you still seem to have, obviously, from Mandela, a great deal, enormous respect. For Mbeki, a lot of respect. And in many respects, it might be interesting to get your thoughts on Mbeki, because I think Mbeki, there's a very fixed view of him in the West, in the United States. But under Zuma, you have gotten to a point where this sort of critique of neoliberalism has sort of fused with your concerns about corruption in South Africa, corruption in the ANC, to the point where you have left the party and you're sort of working on a new iteration of politics in South Africa, which is grassroots driven, which actually maybe harkens back in many ways to the work that you and so many others did in the ANC. So maybe if you could just sort of lead us through, starting with this critique of the ANC and neoliberalism and where we are today.
Well, one has to start with the incredible achievement of toppling apartheid.
Yes.
Through our mass struggle led by the ANC. And the wisdom, it's not just Mandela. There was a collective leadership of luminaries, Governor Mbeki, Walter Sisulu, and so many others who were imprisoned with him, and many who died. Some executed, like Vuyisile Mini, the trade unionist, and others killed in detention. So a huge sacrifice. The world never thought that we would be able to remove apartheid. In the end, there was the negotiated settlement, and mainly because, in the main, the ruling class in South Africa and its political elite, the National Party, from Beirut to de Klerk, saw that, they saw the writing on the wall, that there would be a bloody revolution if they didn't reform. And they wanted to reform in terms of keeping property and the economic control intact. At that particular point in time, 1990, and our first elections, 94, there's huge bloodshed in the country. Many more thousands died in that period than in the period pre to the lifting of the ban on the ANC and other liberation movements in the country. So one has to understand that particular context. It's not easy. In the process, though, I feel, in retrospect, and there's nothing like 2020 vision,
sure.
But I feel that we actually could have got a much better deal, given that the masses were in the ascendancy. We had strong United Trade Union movement, and we had the support from the whole world. Nevertheless, in the concessions which were made at the negotiating table, and there is give and take when you're having to get through a situation where you haven't beaten them on the battlefield, but of course they're fearing the way things can go. In that particular situation, when we examine the compromises, we gave too much on the economic front. And again, when you've got the captains of industry and the leaders of the capitalist world saying to Mandela and leadership that if you guys go through with your radical nationalization, land redistribution, you're going to be isolated. You're not going to receive any investments from abroad. Your country's going to be stunted, and it's up to you. And you're looking at the poverty in the country, and you're looking at the violence from the right wing, and you feel that the way ahead is through taking what's on offer, because you know you'll win the election hands down, as the ANC did, well over 60% of the vote. You take the political levers of power, and along with Mandela and his able lieutenant Mbeki, very bright people and a collective, and I was part of it, you feel that let's have our hands on the levers of power, and we will then erode the economic order and get to the point where we can control it. We did that, and that's what I call the Faustian Pact, and not just pointing finger at Mandela or Mbeki, who were our two most leading people. I was in the Communist Party as well as the ANC, Joe Slovo, we all agreed to that. A little bit of misgiving. Some of us said, we could step up the struggle some more. Let me give an example in looking back where I say I think the balance of forces were more in our favor. That threat from the West or business and investment that we would be isolated and so on, would the African Americans stood by in your country and allowed their government to put the squeeze on South Africa, would the anti-apartheid movement straddling the world have been silent in the face of those kind of attempts by, what later is the Washington Consensus and the EU? We had that very important detachment on our side and the strength of our own people. So we missed that particular opportunity. And, when I say a Faustian Pact, we accepted the political power in exchange for putting off the economic to another day. But what we do know, and we knew this before then, which is where I kicked myself in the pants, is that those who dominate society economically, even if they don't have the control of most political parties, they are able to call the tune. They erode your power. And this is the straitjacket we're in. Of course, the Soviet Union had collapsed. Not that we wanted a Soviet-style rule. We wanted democracy. But at least when the Soviet Union existed, there was this knowledge that we could rely on East European countries, China, socialism, to give us a balance against the West. But that all broke down, which made it all the more likely to go along with the scenario which I explain and call that Faustian Pact. The trouble is when you had, and I come to your question about Thabo Mbeki, the most brilliant mind amongst us, a man who had Marxist understanding, very deep that is, who had a tremendous strategic overview of the world, and who was really, with Mandela and after, striving to walk this tightrope to help us get into a situation where we would become masters of our own destiny in terms of building our economic power. One might say, well, that was going to be impossible even for Mbeki. I'm just making a point that with someone of the sophistication, and I'm not talking in elitist terms, of an Mbeki, we had perhaps a chance. But at the same time, in that Faustian Pact, you have building up forces which I would say are on the right wing of the ANC, narrow nationalist groupings, people who are ready to make the most of crony capitalism, which of course is something very difficult to oppose, to defend, to prevent if you aren't very, very rigorous. And that opening occurs. I'm not against the emergence of black capitalists in our country, but you need that occurring when you have very strong leadership. But when you have a leadership, and I'm talking about a leadership that succeeds Mbeki after
this is the current leadership of Jacob Zuma,
where you get crony capitalism running unchecked, then you lead under the present administration and a president who, unlike Mbeki, was clearly facing very serious corruption charges, and is still doing everything possible to keep himself out of court. And this is where he had tremendous support from that faction, which has now grown and dominates in the ANC in our movement, who want to make wealth for themselves in the first place. And this is where, instead of serving the people, you become and you find yourselves in a situation of serving oneself. So that at present in South Africa is the way the pendulum has moved, and one still hopes to see that within the ANC and our liberation movement, that positive forces, and there is a struggle taking place, will come to the fore. But I happen to feel that it's good, and I support those comrades within who are struggling, but I feel that we need a voice, an organized voice to the left of the ANC now, because we're not just talking about the struggle against racial oppression. It's absolutely intertwixed with capitalism and capitalist exploitation, and we need a very clear-cut voice to the left of the ANC, which raises the question of socialism. In the past, that voice and organization was the Communist Party of South Africa, which I've left to join with a nascent, emerging left socialist opposition out of trade unions, particularly the Metal Workers Union, NUMSA, a united front which is emerging, and civil society. It's going to be a tough battle. I'm not over optimistic about it. I think it will take time, but I think it will also speak to people within the ANC and the liberation movement as such, to get them doing similar work from within. But we're doing this work from without as pressure on our government and on our ruling party, the ANC.
Well, one more final question. We only have a couple minutes left, and it's all fascinating. But I know that you like to get the opportunity to also speak out. You are, a part of your identity is you're Jewish revolutionary, Jewish socialist. You've, as part of that, spoken out a lot on the issue of Israel-Palestine, and I want to give you the opportunity in the final couple of minutes we have to share your perspective on that.
Well, you see, for South Africans, it's not difficult to see the racist colonial character of Israel, the supplanting of the indigenous Palestinian people by Zionism, which is a narrow, inclusivist nationalism, using the Bible to justify the claims that the land belongs to the Jewish people and to none other. I mean, this is absolutely unjust. It's ahistorical, and the methods they use remind all of us South African freedom fighters, bar none, who have visited not just the occupied territories, Gaza, the West Bank, but Israel itself, to see the discrimination against Palestinians, against the Bedouin, against people of color within Israel. Whatever they claim about their democracy, these are second-class citizens. But of course, the appalling military occupation, the absolute horrendous siege of Gaza, the constant killings of Palestinian people. And as someone who's of Jewish descent, when they claim that they're doing this for the Jewish people, I say not in my name, along with a growing number of Jewish people in the United States and South Africa, Europe and elsewhere. Mandela said we cannot be free until the Palestinian people are free, and I take that to heart. So look, I've made the point about that. Please let me end by again appealing to your good listeners to give support to this great internationalist film that we're making, London Recruits, and to check our website, which is London Recruits. They'll get enormous information about how they can help make this film and spread the word. Thanks very much indeed.
It's linked on our website. And Ronnie Kasrils, thank you so much for your time today. I appreciate it immensely.
A pleasure. Thank you.
Okay, everybody, we are going to go to the fun half in just a moment. That's a person, that I've read about and been familiar with for many years. So that was fascinating. Become a member of the Majority Report today. Only on a show like this could I be receiving IMs while I talk to really a objectively historical figure complaining that I did not do my right-wing Mandela impression to him. I think that really distills the polls of this show, that we could have a 40-minute conversation with a former movement leader of the armed struggle to liberate South Africa, who then served as a minister of intelligence and a deputy defense secretary. And there's also another part of the show where I do an impression of one of the greatest icons of the 20th century, as essentially a right-wing pop-up ad come to life. Those are the polls of this program, and you're not going to find it many other places. So please be
muted, Matt.
Yeah, I just wanted to keep that last little bit on there because I thought it was pretty funny. The people demanding the right-wing Mandela impressions to Ronnie Kasrils, who served as his deputy, I think, defense minister. But yeah, great interview. I think that movie, London Recruits, I think it got delayed, but from what I could tell this morning, it's still in some sort of production ongoing as early as this spring. So you might want to look out for that. I'm going to reach out to Ronnie and try to do something else with the over at the TMBS show to continue on that. I saw William Shockey, who from Africa as a Country, notified, I believe, Kasrils about Michael's passing, and Kasrils had a sweet message. So, yeah, this is one of early classic. The Thursday, I guess these were on Mondays. This was when Michael was still doing the Monday shows, but those episodes were kind of the early versions of TMBS, very international in subject matter. I'm going to admit Matt Binder and Jamie Peck right now. Conditioning off. Hey guys, are you with us? I should say join the majorityreport.com to become a member of this show. You can check out those Michael shows. Michael Thursdays is for the last couple of years, and those early Michael Mondays, and then the Matt and Michael Mondays are also in that archive. Hey Matt, hey Jamie.
Hey, how's it
going? How you guys doing today?
Doing okay, doing all right. How about you?
I'm doing well. It's great to be back. It's great to be back.
Is that a beer?
Yeah, please. Come on. The Pepsi.
Oh, okay.
I don't want to dox anyone, but I saw that you had some X's in your email address, Matt. I was
do.
Like, oh, lol, straight edge for life, right? Is that like your AOL screen name or something? And you're like, no, seriously, but unironically, straight edge for life.
Right. Yes, I've been straight edge for a very long time. Yes, very, very long time. I guess
I did know that.
Going back to high school, to be quite honest with you.
I love that. Were you one of those straight edge people who would like go to parties and knock beers out of people's hands? Because I think that's pretty dope.
No, I wasn't hardline. No. I was the guy who would go to the parties and be the designated driver because I was nice like that.
Aw, what a guy. What a mensch.
Yeah, but that's just, it's for me, I tell, if you're someone who's addicted to stuff, you should get help. But if you just casually enjoy it, I have no problem with it. This is just my choice,
Live and let live. I love it.
Yeah.
So, are we going to do some plugs now, or should we do this clip?
We should maybe do this clip, I think. You want to set this up for us, Jamie?
Sure. So Matt thought that I would be into doing this clip, and he was correct because it combines several things that are extremely my shit. Can I say the S word? I just did.
Yep.
Sorry.
We also should implement a rule where when there's two Matts on the show, we need to go by last names because I'm getting very confused.
Okay. Well, Otto Matlack correctly predicted that I would be into this clip because it combines several things that are extremely my shit. First, we have things I liked as a kid, which I now realize are utter pop culture garbage, and foolish attempts at anti-communist propaganda and children's programming, which we all know from watching TikTok, of course, that the Zoomer generation is a committed bunch of gender fluid climate Maoists. So I don't know how well that's going to work, but still they try. So this is a clip from the Disney show, the Disney Channel show Girl Meets World, which of course is a reboot of the TGIF classic Boy Meets World, which I feel like when I say that, it's like Proust and the Madeleines for all the millennials out there. It's just tingling some very deep memories in your brain. That's all that's going to be left in our heads when we're old and dying. But in this show, our friend Corey is now a teacher. And having broken the spirit of his formerly cool and independent girlfriend, Topanga, he is now attempting to teach the younger generation. Let's take a look.
Ms. Hart, Ms. Matthews, Farkle, 100%. You get a C.
What? We get a what's that you say now? How do we get 100% and get a C?
Because when you get everything right, but you don't do it yourselves, it makes you average. A divided by 3 is a C. Look at you. You're all the same. You're average. You're common.
Communism. This is why it fell. People didn't want to all be the same.
Without incentive, there's no motivation. Without motivation, there's no advancement. In a truly free society, we share the best parts of ourselves without cheating. Because we get to learn who we are individually.
Come on, guys. Separately, you're the best individuals I know. I miss you. Please come back.
A few things I would like to spotlight before I open it out to discussions from the panel. So here we are seeing the phenomenon whereby a mediocre white man like Corey believes himself to be self-made, when we all know in a truly just society, he would never have bagged a woman like Topanga, let alone compelled her to give up her scholarship to Yale, which, you know, has its own issues. We'll set that aside for a minute, to marry him and bear his mediocre children, right? It is also an instance of government policy hiding itself from the people it benefits, working a little too well, right? Because we all know Corey is actually the beneficiary of many invisible systems of privilege, right? Including white supremacy, patriarchy, and a heavily subsidized suburban lifestyle in which his school is not only properly funded, but his teacher literally lives in his backyard to help this loser with whatever non-obstacles he may be encountering in his very easy life. Of course, this goes without saying, but to address some of the ideology laying down this clip, by combining our various capacities for human ingenuity in a collaborative, cooperative way, that doesn't wipe out the individual, but it makes us all better off precisely because we're all different and we all have different strengths and weaknesses. Because, like the class enemy Hillary Clinton said in a phrase I'm now reappropriating for the people, we are stronger together.
Jamie, that was an astute analysis, but I think you might have looked even a little bit too deep into this, to be honest. Because frankly, Corey's just a bad teacher because a score of 100 divided by 3 does not equal a C. That's like a failing grade. That's like what, 33.3%, right? Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
that's definitely enough.
Yeah.
Well, once again, mediocre white man, QED.
Well, also he was a public school teacher. Is that a public school? I assume. Come on, our teacher should discipline him a little bit better. This episode was called "Girl Meets Communism." Communism.
Honestly, that sounds like a podcast that Jamie should start.
Girl Meets Communism.
It sounds like the title of my memoir, to be perfectly honest. But I dug a little bit deeper into the repressive and disgusting, shall we say, decadent bourgeois history of the show. And, where there's anti-communism, there's often racism and there's often patriarchy, right? So I found an interview with Trina McGee, who is a Black actress who played Angela Moore on the original show. And she actually talked about all of the racism that she experienced on set. The guy who played Eric Matthews called her Aunt Jemima. They never gave her anyone proper to do her hair. She had to do it all by herself. And I think that goes to show you, once again, capitalism, patriarchy, and white supremacy, they all go together like Oakley's and hair gel and terrible shirts from Hollister.
Yeah. I mean, it's not surprising. I feel like all these big these shows, the big celebrities on these shows, some terrible backstage news comes out about them that ends up showcasing just how terrible they all are. I mean, recently, what was it like? Everyone was piling on, well, not piling on because it's well deserved, it seems like, but the stuff about the main character from Glee, how she made the life of a young Black woman who was on the show a living hell, apparently.
Yeah, Glee's got a lot of problems, I feel like, in the history after that show. I'd like to read a book on all those sordid characters and people. And Ellen now, too, with the campaign to save Ellen with Jay Leno.
Yeah, it's always the places you least expect.
As if it's not bad enough that Glee is an effing musical.
Right.
Musicals are...
Go ahead, Matt. Go ahead.
You saw Ben Shapiro singing Les Mis yesterday.
I forgot to send that clip to you guys. Maybe we could pull it up for the second half of the show.
We played it. We're not.
Oh, you guys already played it.
That was a day one clip, of course.
I don't know if I'm ready to.
Excuse me.
I don't know if I'm ready to revisit that so soon after it entered my nightmares for the first time, but I'll be a team player.
Yeah.
Matt, many people are saying that you're quite higher than usual today.
Well, the standing desk. Look, I can go up, all the way up right now. Slowly.
Ooh.
Look at that.
Ooh.
That was like a Nat Geo doc. Matt Geo doc.
Yeah, if you need to do any like cool pan moves with a video camera, you just connect one to your desk and roll it out the door.
Wow.
Yeah, I need to get it on it like a lazy Susan.
Automatic with the automatic chair.
It's an automatic, well, desk actually.
Well, putting us all to shame. I
Home
don't
studios.
even know how to raise and lower my chair. I've got my computer on top of a bunch of books to get to the right height.
Yeah, that was the problem I've been having for so long.
Do you have a separate webcam, Jamie? Or is it,
No,
or is it connected to your...
People have been complaining about it. I literally just am using the camera that's embedded in my laptop. So maybe, I don't know how long we're going to be out of the studio for, but maybe Uncle Sam Cedar wants to invest in a little equipment.
It's been like 6 months.
Yeah, it's never happening. We're never getting back there.
Maybe a light.
I don't know if you say what you just said 6 months in. I don't know if you ponder how long this is going to be when you're already half a year into
it. We got to keep hope alive somehow, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But yeah, you could just also turn the screen down a bit. It's a laptop, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's not just the height of the camera that's an issue. It's the quality. I think people want to see me, but you know what? Maybe people should stop being so creepy to me and I get a better camera.
Right. Well, to segue into some plugs, next week, I will probably have a much better camera than I already do because thanks to my show, Doomed, and the wonderful patron subscribers at patreon.com/MattBinder, I have upgraded some equipment. And next week, I'll be coming in probably in like 4K, like beautiful quality.
4K.
Not webcam status either. I will be.
Wait, you're streaming in 4K, or are you gonna?
I will be streaming in 4K via a mirrorless Panasonic camera. I will not be using webcam. I'll be hooking that up via a camera.
What kind of internet do you have?
Yeah, I have FiOS. I am.
Oh my god!
Damn.
I am teched out, man. I am teched out.
Matt B is flexing on the rest of us. He will see your automatic chair and raise it some super space internet.
I can't even stream 1080p here.
I'm gonna look like I'm cinema quality. You're gonna see every single crevice of Matt Binder's face.
Yeah, we're gonna send you hair and makeup now too.
See, that's all you have to do, Jamie, to get Sam to send you hair and makeup. Just gotta upgrade the equipment on your own, and then Sam splurges on the extras. Yeah.
Not a bad idea.
Did Matt just laugh at the very idea of the two words Sam splurges put together?
I don't think hair and makeup is gonna happen.
Tropes, guys.
All right. Well, so YouTube. Before I mention this, have you guys covered this Pac-Man thing, or is this late breaking from last night?
Which part of the Pac-Man thing? I'll be honest, I haven't been following it super closely.
Well, Pac-Man and Sam are apparently neck and neck.
Yes.
In the race to a million subscribers on YouTube. I believe as of now, Pac-Man is at 920,000 subscribers. Sam is at 911,000 subscribers. That's just a 9,000 subscriber difference.
It's growing though.
All right.
Honestly, it's humiliating.
Oh, it's growing
humiliating to me that he has anywhere near the number of subscribers as us.
Well, I think what people need to do right now is go to youtube.com/Matt Binder and get me in this game. I mean, I'm only 955,000 subscribers down from 1 million, but I can catch up with all of your help.
I bet you've got some decent takes on imperialism and whether coups are bad or not too. I venture to guess.
Ooh, maybe we shouldn't go there with the pre-existing beef.
Sorry. I take these things seriously, but it's good that you guys are all joking about it, because then I can pretend that my real malice towards him is also a joke.
Ooh.
I mean, not pretend. It's all in good fun. We love you. We love everyone.
Hey, I was go doompod.com, listen to some podcasts from last October, November, I believe. I was all over Bolivia. I'm not supporting no coup. And in fact, I did a really good debate that I was proud to show Michael, and he was, because I don't usually cover international issues like he does, and he saw it, and he was like, he shared it out, and he came back to me and was like telling me how insane this person was. Basically, I debated one of the most prominent young activists who were pushing for the coup in Bolivia.
Oh, wow.
You should go to doompod.com and check it out. I thought it went well. We talked for a really long time, way longer than I expected, but yeah, it was a coup, and it's clearer now, but I don't know. It seemed like it was the case then too. So I don't know how you could have mucked that one up.
Well, it sounds like you got a lot of good content there. I should take a break from my cat drama to check it out. Been having some drama with my cats. You got anything else, or should I go?
I think I did the YouTube. You can follow me on all social media at Matt Binder, or just search Matt Binder. I'm there. Find me.
All right. So in addition to that, this week on the Antifada, we had on Tana Geneva, a writer for The Intercept and Rolling Stone and The Appeal and elsewhere, to talk about the utter malfeasance and abuse of the NYPD, how they've sheltered rapists and abusers, and how even the very mild and insufficient reforms that have passed so far have utterly failed to take effect. They just do not follow the rules. You can't get these people under control. The only thing you can do is take away their money and their toys and their power. We also had on Jake Flores, who's fresh off a bit of a scandal of his own to talk
I would
about.
say that's a bit downplaying it, but okay.
No details, please.
To talk about comedy and the class war, and even a little bit of cancel culture, although we're always kind of loath to resurrect what I think is sort of a dumb topic of discourse to begin with. But I was very proud of how the boys did this week. Check it out, patreon.com/theantifada, or wherever free podcasts are sold.
You just reminded me not to cut Matt off as he's about to plug his show, Literary Hangover. But I am doing an episode of Doomed Live on the YouTube channel on the live stream tonight, and I just totally forgot about it. 9:30 p.m. Eastern time tonight. Jordan you will be joining me. I just messed up his last name. Sorry, Jordan. And he's gonna basically run us through. I don't know if you guys have been paying attention, but Jordan basically outed the U.S. military for using Twitch to try to recruit young gamers to join the army. And due to his reporting and his work on this, his work inspired Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez to try to stop the military from doing this. We'll be running it all. Yeah, they should. Yeah, exactly. We'll be running it all down tonight. YouTube.com/Matt Binder.
Yeah, first for TMBS, David, Griscom, Leisha Brooks, and I, speaking of coups, we updated people on the situations in Bolivia and Venezuela. Also, we did basically a Q&A kind of to talk about the future of the program and how we're going to take, directions we're going to take it. Basically kind of keep the same format alive. It's going to take a lot of work. And then also related to that, Literary Hangover, I'll probably be Twitch stream soon, guys. Sometimes with all the stuff going on, you don't really want to, you kind of want to not broadcast your gaming sessions. It's kind of nice just to have private game. Matt, do you broadcast gaming ever?
I don't. I'm not much of, I haven't been much of a gamer. And what I've been playing actually recently, thanks to my 5-year-old son, is Plants vs. Zombies, The Battle for Neighborville on Xbox.
Plants vs. Zombies good.
It is actually it's a third-person shooter game set in the Plants vs. Zombies world.
Wow.
It is fantastic, actually. It is really addicting. I think when I first heard it, well, maybe we should talk about this in the better half. Well,
yeah.
No, you got to join the show to hear about the gaming content, folks.
Exactly. Or go to twitch.tv. Shut up, Brent. No, I'm sorry. Go to twitch.tv/literary hangover. I will be streaming more of that soon.
And tomorrow on the Majority Report, Sam will be on your TV tomorrow night. And as a result, we need to push up. The Majority Report will be starting at 10:30 in the morning. It is MR in the AM. We got some good guests. And Sam will tell you what he's doing in the evening. It's pretty cool.
I don't even know. I'm interested.
There you go.
What is Sam doing in the evening? I'm sure lots of people out there would love to know.
I used to hear a lot more about it, but now I don't, which is all right.
Not related to OnlyFans.
No, that's Joe Biden's territory.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to wrap up the first half of the show. See you in the fun half. Did I do that good?
Yeah, great job.
Nailed it.
You are in for it. All right, folks. 646-257-3920. See you in the fun half.
Are you ready?
Who sent us this?
Alpha males are back. Boy is back. And the alpha males are back.
Just as delicious as you could imagine.
The alpha males are back. Boy is back. And the alpha males are back.
Just want to degrade the white man.
Alpha males are back.
I take all of it in my throat.
Alpha males are back.
Almost says what?
The alpha males are back.
You are a madman.
And the alpha males are back.
I am a total cunt.
Can we bring back DJ Danerky's song, please?
Yeah, or a couple of them. Just put them in rotation.
DJ Danerky.
Well, the problem with those is they're like 45 seconds long, so I don't know if they're enough of a break for people.
That's fucking nonsense.
Hey, folks, reminder.
I do
not have Parkinson's.
And the alpha males are
Psych. Fuck 'em. Fuck 'em.
Almost says what? Almost says what?
A hell of a lot of bank. A hell of a lot of bank. A hell of a lot of bank. Hell of a lot of bank. A hell of a lot of bank.
All lives matter. Have you tried doing an impression on a college campus?
I think that there's no reason why reasonable people across the divide can't all agree with this. Psych.
and the alpha males are back. And the Africans are black African, and the alpha males are back. And the Africans are black.
See Donald Trump out there, doesn't a little part of you think that America deserves to be taken over by jihadists? Keep it at 100. Can't knock the hustle. Come on, fuck 'em. Things I do for the bigger game plan. By the way, it's my birthday. Happy birthday to me, Jew boy.
I have a thought experiment for you.
And the alpha males are back. Africans are black. Alpha males are back. Africans are black.
Come on. Come on. Someone needs to pay the price for blasphemy around here.
I am a total pussy.
We're back. Matt and Jamie.
Oh, all right. It's the fun half, guys.
Hell yeah. The dad's away, the kids will play.
Yeah. Except I'm a dad and I'm here, so.
Wow. Who dads the dads?
Right. I got two kids, but I could pretend I'm one of the cool kids.
Now with a slightly younger dad.
You're
I guess
like
not slightly younger dad.
Millennial
Not like
dad. That should be a sitcom right there. Better Than Boy Meets World.
Right,
So what should we start with? Should we do this these Biden things? These Biden clips?
Do you guys really want to talk about Biden so much right now? I mean,
not really, but I have some I like making fun of him and they're on the sheet, so
all right. Yeah, all right. We can get some Biden out of the way.
All right. So we all know Trump is widely reviled by liberals for being a babbling idiot who attacks the press when they try to ask him questions and refuses to take any real kind of test to prove his cognitive abilities and his fitness for office. This is why we need a good candidate like Joe Biden to go up against him, who is so different from Trump that it's not even funny, folks. For example, let's watch this clip from an interview he recently did with Yahoo News' Errol Barnett.
Mr. Vice President, your opponent in this election, President Trump, has made your mental state a campaign topic. And when asked in June if you'd been tested
that is one smile.
for cognitive decline, you've responded that you're constantly tested in effect because you're in situations like this on the campaign trail. But please clarify specifically, have you taken a cognitive test?
No, I haven't taken a test. Why the hell would I take a test? Come on, man. That's like saying before you got in this program, if you take a test where you're taking cocaine or not, what do you think, huh? Are you a junkie?
What do you say to President Trump, who brags about his test and makes your mental state an issue for voters?
Well, if he can't figure out the difference between an elephant and a lion, I don't know what the hell he's talking about. Did you watch that? Look, come on, man. I know you're trying to goad me, but I mean, I'm so forward looking to have an opportunity to sit with the president or stand with the president in debates. There can be plenty of time. And by the way, as I joke with him, I shouldn't say it. I'm going to say something I probably shouldn't say. Anyway, I am very willing to let the American public judge my physical and mental my physical as well as my mental fitness,
Jeez.
and to make a judgment about who I am.
Oof. Come on, man. Come on, man.
The storied "come on, man" defense takes you pretty far, it turns out, when you're Joe Biden. I mean, look, guys, we've all been there. It's like when someone puts me on the spot to speak Spanish, maybe on the show, and I'm trying to do a good job with a language I only sort of know, but then I get nervous and speak Spanish even worse than I normally do. And it's like that with Biden and, basic concepts in English.
Brendan, can we throw up that smile that Joe Biden had up top on that video? You guys know that horror movie that came out recently where like anyone who had like the huge smile on their face had like suddenly like turned into was like possessed or something by some ghost? That is quite the smile. That's what that reminds me of. That is a big smile. That's ear to ear right there.
I mean, that is not even that has passed by smile like many miles in the past, and it is a rictus now. Just not something, not a facial expression normally seen on human faces.
Yeah, but here's the thing, I guess, to take it seriously. It sucks that this is, I mean, you already said something serious, but to go back to serious Jamie, he's this is just who he has always been. And this is the guy that we gotta vote for if we don't want Trump, apparently.
Can we play the car one? I don't think it like necessarily, first of all, I'm going to I guess plagiarize Matt Christman, but I don't think anybody's paying attention to any of this stuff. I don't think they were paying attention to it during the primary. I don't think it's going to have really any impact on the election, but I think it's funny how, especially this car clip, like what he said, like he gets, I don't know. This seems like better. He's grasping at something, but he's better at grasping than I think Hillary Clinton was.
Oof. Low bar.
Hey, look.
Weak.
I like to drive. I used to think I was a pretty good driver. I didn't get a chance to flat shift in the second. I was afraid I'd go through those guys.
Tomorrow morning, we're talking about cars and what car you would like to see come back.
I love this car. Nothing but incredible memories. Every time I get in, I think of my dad and Bo. God, can my dad drive a car? Oof. The thing I like most is the setup right here. And you feel like you're in complete control. This is just boom. Now, you can stand in the front here. This is iconic industry. How can American-made vehicles no longer be out there? I believe that we can own the 21st century market again by moving to electric vehicles. And by the way, they tell me, and I'm looking forward, if it's true, to driving one, that they're making an electric Corvette and go 200 miles an hour. You think I'm kidding? I'm not kidding.
Hell yeah, dude.
So I'm excited about it.
Honestly, parts of that video didn't see much of a difference between what Joe Biden was saying and what Matt Leck was saying about his desk before.
Exactly. You got to appeal to people with how they know they've been spoken to in this country. And Trump knows this better than anyone. Speak to people like a consumer. And buying a car is like the most important people understand. Trump's always like, yeah, we're going to have the wall and we might make it out of this material. Or we got these other guys that have this other material. We're looking at both closely. It's just a shopping catalog.
Right. It speaks to their base, it really does. Like I saw all the tweets from people, who are more in our generation and age category, who are all like, wow, how, completely, he has no idea how people are living and surviving right now, completely tone deaf. And it's like, well, yeah, but he's not talking to you. It's not, he's not
exactly.
He's not talking. He already said he doesn't care about you a couple of years ago. He's sticking with it. He's going with his base completely.
He's going with these guys in the suburbs who like to drive cool cars on the weekends.
Exactly.
Because that's where a lot of this battle is going to play out. But look, I think this is actually a pretty good ad because it shows that Biden is a real cool guy who could totally drive a car all by himself. He understands the climate crisis and granular detail and how we're going to fix it by giving tons of government subsidies to Elon Musk. And he's going to bring the jobs back from China and make America great again.
It's tough when, like to get somebody on board, because I know guys who, basically denied climate change for so long because they love cars a lot and they think electric vehicles are for female tendencies. That the only way you can appeal to these guys now is to say, like, you know what though, dude, we're going to be able to go 200 miles per hour. And like, to be honest,
pretty fast.
The personal automobile, whether electric or gas, probably needs to be phased out in terms of more mass transportation for the climate thing. So, like, in that sense, Elon Musk stuff is a fantasy that's actually leading us into more entrenched, types of development and land use. But I don't know. That aside,
they go so fast.
All in all, though, I think.
Did you not hear the vroom 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 in that ad?
His dad
my dad could drive.
What does that even mean? My dad could, I could drive a car too. What does that mean?
My dad could drive what did you say? Drive a hell out of a car.
I think the point is taken that like they did spin like a pretty good ad out of like what I can't imagine was like a very easy filming process of what Joe had to say and everything. Like I imagine like the raw footage from this, and I'm just like seeing him drive that car so fast, I was like, Jesus Christ, he might.
Oh yeah!
Like, I thought I might hit somebody. I was like, I thought he might actually.
Honestly,
they wrecked 10 cars in the making of this video. This was the only good take.
The tweet
Biden's got the Biden's got the Jay Leno vote wrapped up right now. It's not going anywhere. Right, but Matt, I saw earlier in the week that you got some. You were getting some shit, excuse me, for you're a big Biden fan, right? You love him, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Damn, what was I just gonna say?
Did I just ruin you, Matt? I'm sorry.
Yeah, you
Can't
took my.
take you anywhere, Matt B.
You were about to talk about your love for Joe Biden. Come on, just spit it out, Matt.
Damn. Anyway, let's move on to the next thing.
Solid transition.
All right, time to add another name to my my list of people who hate me. Right under Pac-Man, Matt Leck.
We talk about Pac-Man way too much on this show.
There is one funny thing though. Pac-Man released a video. We're not going to play it, but he's pumping up this drama between him and Sam.
There was a guy I saw that one.
Yeah, he's very straight in the beginning of it, like delivers it very plainly. And then before he goes to the clip where he says Sam accuses him of using bots, he has a disclaimer where he's like, "This is all a joke. We're just joking, the two of us. It's just us."
I'm not joking.
Minus the disclaimer. I saw that video and I was like, "This is a really good Pac-Man video." It's like he had me almost convinced that he was really beefing with Sam Cedar.
Oh, I remember what I was going to say. So. Taking this little I don't have dementia test, that's something Elizabeth Warren would do. Joe Biden's like, I'm going to whip around some curves in a 68 Corvette. And to be honest, that's what they need to do. If you're going to have this trash candidate that you can't talk about their policies and they can't articulate really what's going on with this country, put him in a Corvette and let them appeal to people that way.
Exactly. He is the perfect synthesis of Trump and Hillary. He's got the policies of a Hillary or an Obama, certainly. And he's got the sort of the low cunning of a Trump. When faced with attacks, he just cruises.
Come on, man. Oof. Those sorts of noises. More of those noises, Joe. Onomatopoeia.
And did you catch how he accused the interviewer of being on cocaine? Like, what's the analogy there, right? They're asking him to take a cognitive test because he's old, and he's like, well, I'm gonna turn around and say to this black guy, well, are you gonna take a cocaine test? I don't know, just another one of those like tone deaf little things he does in the course of his life.
That was very reminiscent of that infamous Bill O'Reilly moment, to be quite honest.
What was
Bill O'Reilly, I believe it was Bill O'Reilly. I think it was Bill O'Reilly, where he was doing an interview with a black journalist, and he used an example where the guy was like dealing cocaine or something like that. Because
sounds like Bill O'Reilly, yeah.
Right, yeah. very reminiscent of that, I thought. But yeah. So who you guys voting for?
Oh, geez. Let's have a moratorium on those kinds of questions. I feel like they are not very interesting, but they always get me and Sam arguing because we both like to argue, even though neither of us really wants to talk about it anymore.
Now I definitely want to talk about it. Come on, man.
But speaking of people who call in and say things to us that stir the pot or maybe just interact with us in a pleasant way, we have acquired the phone technology to take your calls on Thursday. I thought it couldn't be done, folks. Michael didn't do it when he hosted on Thursdays. Bless his heart. Maybe he just didn't want to. But we have the technology. So shall we take a call?
We do. We should. Kyle and I spent hours last night to get this to work. And let's pull up the first caller of this show. 585 area code. Hopefully this works. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
John from Western New York.
Does everybody on the other line, Matt Leck, Jimmy, Brendan, do you hear the caller?
Yep, good.
I hear him.
Amazing. You are the first caller in this new crazy system we've set up. You have no idea what's open, the number of different apps open on my computer to make this work. How you doing, buddy?
Good, thanks. Is David there?
David?
Yeah. Is this the David Pakman show?
Ooh, I should have seen that coming, but I literally thought there was there was a mistake or something because you're the first caller.
Yeah, maybe it was the wrong number.
Should I
Oh, yeah, geez, sorry.
should I extend the beef? Hi, I'm David Pakman and you're calling into the Pakman show. How are you doing today?
I don't think that impression was good enough to extend the beef. Sorry, Matt.
Probably not. I was just trying to be, David Pakman. That's all.
All right. Very funny.
Okay,
You got us.
I
You thought you were calling into the other show, but it's this better one. Lucky you.
Okay, Sam there?
All right.
No, that wasn't the question. Matt, are you taking over Thursdays now?
Yeah.
All right.
We don't really know what we're
Very
doing
good.
from week to week, but
this is just for the short-term time being.
Oh, so it's still kind of up in the air. All right, that was about it. I just wanted to do that a little bit.
Thanks for that.
I thought
Have a good one.
honestly, it was worth it for my Pakman impression, which obviously everyone, especially Matt Leck, enjoyed.
That's right.
Yeah, definitely clipping
We give
this.
you calls on Thursdays, and this is what we get. First
We
call.
are
Nice
we
job.
are honoring the memory of Michael Brooks by doing terrible impressions that he would not be threatened by.
Oh, listen, it was a regular occurrence on Matt and Mike Mondays where I would be the bad impressionist to Michael's extremely good impressions. So we are quite frankly honoring it the way it should be honored.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
631. What's your name? Where you calling from?
Hi, my name is Greta, and I've been waiting to call for a Thursday because I just wanted to express my condolences to you all. And I have family in Kashmir, and yesterday was the 1-year anniversary of the shutdown, and Michael would have been the person who would have talked about it. So I just wanted to thank you all and just let you know there's a lot of us who feel like we lost a big ally in Michael. So that's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We're
Appreciate
all
that.
we're really gonna have to step up our game in terms of international coverage. I think Michael just left a huge vacuum behind him in that area.
Right. I agree completely. 774. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hey, this is Dick. I'm from Sam's homeland of Worcester, actually.
Ooh.
Dick from Worcester.
I know. Very excited. Very exciting. Jamie, you said it like a native. But so I guess this is like a bit of a weird question, but it's something I've been thinking about recently. I mean, so we have, 10 years, theoretically, to fundamentally reduce globally the amount of emissions that we have as a global society, or else it's irreparable damage to like vast swaths of the population. And like undeniably capitalism is what's driving this climate change. At what point does it become like incumbent on us to like actually rise up and like do something about this instead of just like passively sitting by and being like, oh, I'll sign a petition, like I'll donate to a campaign. Like I'm not calling for violence. I'm just perusing your thoughts on this.
It's honestly, to me, it's a question without an answer, at least in the current landscape. I mean, frankly, and I've said this to other people, and it's going to be quite frank, and I'm sorry to the listener base that this will hurt their feelings, including my dad, but it will require that the boomers generation sort of leave. I'll say that as nicely as possible.
Wow. I thought you were going to say they need to change their tune.
They're not changing their tune. It's not going to happen.
Matt, with the eliminationist rhetoric.
And I said, there's good boomers, obviously. I'm not all boomers.
Not all boomers.
My dad is one. He listens to the show. He IMs you guys all the time. I love my dad. I don't want him to go anywhere. But got to take one for the team, pops.
Wow. Wow, man. I mean, it is true that more than just the 1% is standing in our way of the change that we need to make, right? I think Mike Davis, the great Marxist historian, cited it at about maybe 30% of the population in this country is just always going to stand in the way of progress. And that correlates, but it's not a complete one-to-one correlation with their class position as petty bourgeoisie or whatever. Because if there were only 1% of people oppressing the rest of us, that's just not enough people to really hold everything in place. That's not enough votes. That's not enough. Well, maybe it's enough money, but I do agree that we are going to need to do something sooner than later. And when I think of the enormity of the task at hand, sometimes I get a little depressed. I get a little black-pilled, but when the wave crashes, when the shit hits the fan, and we're all like just blood boys on Peter Thiel's blood farm in veal crates hooked up to the matrix, I want to be able to say that I did everything I could. So what does that mean? It means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. Some people want to go the electoral route. That's fine. I'm never going to get mad at people for doing that. Their hearts are in the right place, and it might work. I don't claim to know everything, but I have a hunch that it's more than that going to take some real deep ass organizing on the grassroots level from the ground up. Just one example, we're going to play this clip in a bit, or maybe now, but all over the country, tenants have been organizing with each other for their rights, pushing back against landlords, pushing back against evictions, because they can't wait for policy. It's great. It's great that people like Ilhan Omar are out there doing legislation, writing up really good bills to cancel the rent, to have a moratorium on rents and on mortgages. But in the meantime, we have to be fighting. We cannot wait for someone to do it for us. And I think the more grassroots resistance that we see, the more results we're going to see on the level of policy as well.
Yeah, I mean, the answer is there are people who are doing more than petitioning and, retweeting stuff, but it's hard to do. It takes a lot of your life to do that, to dedicate your life to the type of organizing that is actually going to be required. And that's by design in this country. I caution people away from, like lamenting that others aren't doing the work. Like if you have the ability to go do the work, find like Sunrise Movement. I'm sure there's plenty of others. I agree. We need radical action on this stuff.
I agree with that too.
But people are there, and we need to. Yeah, I think the job is to link up with those people.
Yeah, and I don't know if capitalism can solve the climate crisis, but honestly, I'm pretty skeptical that it can. But even if it can, like that's not a reason to keep it around necessarily. And like the amount of just sheer international coordination that it's going to take. Seems like we need to build a new system. I don't know what to call it yet. Some people call it socialism. Some people call it communism. Some people call it just even as an internationalist social democracy would go a long way towards the kind of global reordering of our economic system and of production, the way things are produced and distributed, that we really need to do in order to solve this problem.
Which is why we need to move beyond progressive candidates that highlight intellectual property in their climate change policy things. Like this, all this
or green
should be sharing.
militarism.
Yeah, exactly. Like, it's funny, like the whole, we talked about, just to go briefly back to the Girl Meets World communism clip, like, in a pandemic, maybe we should be working together. The Russians are stealing some sort of data about a vaccine. Like, let's maybe collaborate on that. Let's do it on Wikipedia. Yeah. I don't know, Jesus.
I mean, one of the few times that I've ever managed to stump Sam in an argument was when we were talking about the kind of international cooperation that's going to be required in order to solve this very terrifying problem. And the U.S. is in a tough spot because say we did have a government that cared about climate change in the world, in this country, it would require going to developing nations, right, after we already used nature as an infinite free gift in industrializing our economy and raising our standard of living, turning around and saying, I know that we just did this, and I know you guys want to compete. I know you want a certain standard of living for your people, but too bad you don't get to. And how are you going to enforce that? Well, there is the kind of soft power. We could buy them off by giving them lots of technology and money and resources to industrialize in a greener way, to have a greener economy that still lifts people up. Or we can do hard power and say, you know what, you're going to have to do what we say, or, bad things are going to happen to you. And I'm not sure that we have that kind of soft power anymore. I'm not sure even if we did, the political portion of it would be there in place to carry it out. But, I would love to be wrong about all of this, and I would love for everything to be fine and capitalism to be fixable and the earth to be green. So.
Yeah, just put a button on it, talking about direct action beyond, political organization. Really cheering for the coronavirus in Brazil with Jair Bolsonaro. I feel like that would be a big step in helping us right now in terms of deforestation.
Seriously.
Like, the nice thing would be able to, as this coronavirus thing stretches into months and months and months, which it's going to do. It'd be nice to maybe try to use that as a way to, I don't know, make the state a little bit more responsive to these things. But who knows?
Yeah. Keep up hope. Keep fighting the good fight. Whatever you're doing in your community, keep on doing it. Bring a friend next time.
I mean, shit's going down. I mean, the reason FDR and the New Deal Democrats accomplished what they did wasn't because they had these great ideas and did it. It's because of all the outside forces. And like a pandemic depression is a pretty big outside force. So,
but nothing is a given, right? Like, we're not going to get a better world just automatically, if you will.
Automatically, I like that.
Like, what I do believe that neoliberal capitalism is coming to an end. It is in a terminal crisis, and we see more and more signs of that every day. But what comes after it might not be socialism. It might not be better. It might be something even worse if the same hierarchies are allowed to persist and the capitalist economy reorders itself in an even more dehumanizing and terrible way than what we're seeing right now. So a lot of it is going to be up to us, up to the people, up to what we do, because, history is always a combination of larger social forces and contingencies. And I do think that there's room for free will in that to change the course of history. And I think the next 5 to 10 years are going to be very crucial in determining whether or not the vast majority of the human race survives in any kind of non-immiserated way. So stay tuned, folks.
Yeah. All right, let me read some IMs because there's a bunch coming in. Chicken Hawk Filla. My wife wants to cuck me with Matt Leck. Okay.
A bit broad, but I guess I appreciate the blue humor there.
Bear at home too. With all these high-level ideas, how is David killing MR? Patrick from Kansas City.
He's been crushing it this month. I don't know what's going on, but we passed him, I'm pretty sure, but he's crushing it.
I love David Packman. No idea where
The
all
man
these
knows how to
subscribers are
promote
coming
himself. I will give him that.
Love David Packman. Swear I'm not a bot. Don't. Patrick from Kansas City. Don't forget to follow a leftist today. Hashtag no comrade under 1K. Oh, I saw that going around.
Twitter is praxis.
Ooh, Bear at Home too says maybe it's because David focuses his criticism on Trump rather than Biden. Shot across the bow. Oh.
Yeah, we never
that's not a
Trump
bad
on this
thing
show.
to do.
Yeah.
I think actually that's the responsible thing to do. I think people that spend all their time bashing on Biden are doing it for brand positioning purposes. I mean, I don't think you should lift a finger for Biden, but I think like the idea that you're toying around with should we vote for him in a swing state is pointless filler and meant for clicks.
The Social Buffalo says it was Dr. Mark Lamont Hill on with O'Reilly, and Bill said, let's say you're a drug dealer. You kind of look like one. Oh, I think it was cocaine dealer, actually. I think he specifically said cocaine dealer. Ooh.
I am personally shocked that Bill O'Reilly would ever say anything racist.
Yeah, very surprising.
Amy Fair says, Matt, be nice to Matt. Yeah, Matt, be nice to me, buddy.
Wait, maybe it's you have to be nice to me.
I know. That's the joke.
Oh, I honestly didn't know which one it was meant for.
Yeah, I don't know either. That's
just the golden rule in MR terms.
It's the Zen Cohen.
M. Brown says, thank you for doing this review with Michael and Ronnie Kasrils. I'm sorry if I messed up his last name. I'm terrible with names. This is evergreen. Yeah, it was a great interview. I love Jamie and the Mats, says to Subasa or something like that.
Don't forget about Brendan.
Yeah, of course. We gotta like brand this now, right? I think Jamie and the Mats is one way we could go with it. I've seen other people call this Peck, Leck, and Binder, which sounds like a law firm. I don't know. Well, Brendan's got to be in there too. So it'd be what? Peck, Leck, Finn, and Binder, or Peck, Leck, Binder, and Finn?
I believe Finder was the portmanteau that we settled on last time.
I'm not sharing my name with anyone.
All right,
we'll keep working on it.
Who's the real socialist here, then?
Oh, I'm sorry. My name is mine, okay? Everything else, collective. My name is mine, okay? Matt Leck.
If you like your name, you can keep it.
All right. You guys want to go to more sounds, I guess?
Sure.
Or more calls.
Away.
Pick one. Call, sounds. What do you want to do?
Let's do another call while we're going.
Yeah, cool. 250. What's your name? Where are you calling from? Ooh, 250. What's your name? Where are you calling from? Hey.
My name is Ashwin. I'm actually calling from... Hey, so my name is Ashwin. I'm calling from Canada, actually. I'm one of your recent fans. I've been listening for about a few months now. And so I kind of have a comment and then a question for you guys.
Sure.
So I'm not sure, but your neighbors in North, most of our population is actually right by the border. So we are actually kind of, to a large extent, impacted quite directly how the U.S. fares on how they do with coronavirus, right? So I just wanted to let you guys know that we're worried for you from up here, not only for you guys but for ourselves too. So for the love of God, if everybody could just vote, that would be great. And the question I have for you guys is, have you guys what do you guys think of crown corporations, and do you think that they could be an answer to some of the problems that we have right now in terms of climate change? For example, we could have some of our natural resources like lumber and oil owned by crown corporations, and maybe they could be they could run a more sustainable program. And what do you guys think about that?
Owned by what kind of corporations?
A crown corporation.
That's
it's
a nationalized
right.
corporation.
Wholly owned by the crown.
That's
well, I would say we probably shouldn't have a monarchy in the U.S. But the gist, I know what you're saying.
The only way we can solve climate change is to reverse the American Revolution.
Right.
No, we need to overcome the American Revolution in the Hegelian sense. But go on.
But I mean, like natural resources should not be owned by private companies, whether it's oil or water or anything in between. I mean, so whether you call it a crown corporation or whether that's just like, part of the, the new octagon that we're going to use to build on top of the Pentagon to fight climate change, like whatever it is. But I mean, I'm down with any kind of nationalization, crown corporations or whatever.
Yes, the air, the water, and the land, these are resources that belong to everyone, it is highly unnatural and also just like unscientific, right, to put a fence around some portion of it and say, this belongs to me, when the pollution that you create in that little square has the ability to travel all over the world.
Well, and on top of that, like the work the American government has done over the past half century to basically enforce the combustion engine as the main mode of transportation around the world is just like the billions and billions and trillions of dollars to build this stuff. And right now it's like, yeah, we're going to open up the Arctic, right? That's all governmental decisions. I mean, just gets like that entire industry is basically the deep state. Oil is, it's never free of state control. It's way too important for war purposes, right? That stuff is never, that's not the free market. These oil companies are not the free market, folks. That's why a lot of spies, were oil men. But anyway, I'll move off of that. Move on to something else. But like George DeMoro or Rafael Cruz.
Yeah. Thanks for the call.
I think the caller makes a good point.
I just want to say it's.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, no problem.
Go ahead.
Oh, so I was going to say that the idea isn't necessarily that it's a good idea to have corporations own natural resources. I can really agree with the social ownership of music production, but I think it's an easier and more palatable idea to a lot of people, and that's the reason why I brought it up. Right? Like it's just it seems to fit the current paradigm a little bit easier than oh yeah, there should be social ownership of music production. That's what I was trying to get at.
Yeah, I mean, I might probably be stepping on Jamie's line here, but I don't think the current paradigm is fittable to the crisis. So I think these sorts of different ways of framing things might. I mean, Lula's thing, the Bolsa Familia program, is interesting because that's like a means-tested program-ish, but it brought a lot of people out of poverty, and I guess that was in line with the current paradigm and got results. So I mean, that's an argument in your favor. But I think we're going to need to think about these oil reserves are just owned by, I mean, I prefer the UN or something like that than the American government, but it's going to need to be something probably pretty crude that's going to get us out of these problems.
I mean, if these natural resources and the way that we produce energy were under democratic control, there's no guarantee that people would democratically decide to do the right thing for the environment and make the kinds of drastic changes that we're going to need to make if we want to survive on this planet. But I think there's at least a chance that they will. And that's more than you can say when they're under corporate control by companies whose sole imperative under this system is to accumulate profits in the short term.
Don't you just love beautiful Yosemite folks?
Yo, man, can we play that Vic Berger clip?
Definitely.
All right, caller, thanks so much.
Oh, yeah, let's play this.
Yeah, I think the caller makes a good point. America should rejoin the Commonwealth and we can end climate change.
Yes.
Look, American, a lot of problems that came from the American Revolution. Good to end feudalism, but A lot of problems came after that point.
It was a step. It was a step in the progressive chain. I think capitalism was an improvement over feudalism in most ways for people. And I think socialism will be an improvement over capitalism. We're just climbing the ladder to success one step at a time.
That's a
Very
hopeful
long,
way to look at it.
Long, elongated steps, very far away from each other.
Yeah.
Are we playing that clip, or should we?
You got it?
Yeah, I can set this up, I guess, if it's about ready. We used to play a lot of Vic Berger back on the show. Vic's I believe, a Majority Report viewer, unless he's just flattering me. But one of my all-time favorite, I guess, video editors, you would say, video producers. He, I think, created an entire new genre of political art in terms of his, zoom ins on the awkward moments and slowdowns. I think just great. And he's still doing work. And honestly, it's my favorite way to process the reality of our politics for the past 5 years is Vic Berger videos. So Vic did a video on Trump getting his Teddy Roosevelt on and talking about the national parks. And here's that video.
We want every American child to have access to pristine outdoor spaces. When they gaze upon the grandeur and the splendor of Yosemites, towering sequoias, their love of country grows stronger. God's creation. This is truly God's creation. Lush forests, towering mountains, windswept and beautiful windswept prairies and precious wetlands and wildlife refuges. And this nation is a special nation. Yosemite refuges.
Man.
Is that like Yo Mama? Like
Yeah.
Yosemites are so stingy. They I don't know. Bad impression. You know what I'm getting at. What you know about my Semites?
I guess we know that.
I mean,
Go
it's
ahead.
crazy that the man has never seen the word Yosemite on a piece of paper before. I mean, that's really what we're. I mean, he clearly has to know that what the name of the park is. He's just never seen it on a piece of paper before because he doesn't read anything.
Dude,
I
do you
mean-
really think he knows the park?
I mean, who hasn't at least?
I don't think he knows
I
the
don't know,
park,
man. The guy
man.
has spent his entire life within a 40-mile radius of Manhattan.
The only way he'd know the park is if they put a hotel on it. It was if there was Trump Yosemites.
That's a
Got
great
Trump.
idea, Matt. I'm going to put a hotel there.
Can we get a hotel in there?
Maybe
Actually-
that's how we get Trump to care about the environment. We just put a very ecologically sustainable hotel and golf
That's not a
course
Trump
with
property.
his name on it in the middle of every park, and then he'll know how to pronounce it.
Oh man, Yosemites.
I think he would have watched Looney Tunes or something and seen
look-
Yosemite Sam.
Yeah, that's why I
Yeah.
think he has to know the word Yosemite. I mean, come on, he's got. If not for the park, he knows it from Yosemite Sam. I mean,
Yeah, it's one of those words. It's one of those words you hear all the time, but you never write it down. So I never saw it.
right? Yeah, I guess it could be for him. Who knows?
He learns from reading. Okay, he hasn't heard it spoken out loud because he's a self-taught book learner.
It's funny that the Republicans want to jump on Joe Biden's misspeaking when this is like their candidate. Like,
Yeah.
I think guys, you're both having a bit of trouble in this time of your life. So let's just maybe take that off the table. Make everyone feel a little bit better.
We didn't pull it, but there's a clip from Fox and Friends this morning of Pete Hegseth saying, like, it's impossible to understand Biden. You need a decoder to understand what he's saying. And it's like, we've spent the last 3 years with Trump talking about, whether we should believe what he says or, oh my God.
You need specifically not to use a decoder. You just need to look at the body language and sort of tone and just disregard content. And actually Joe and Trump are very similar in that
Well, I mean, Trump doesn't need to show that he's good, right? He just needs to show that the Democrats are bad too. And that's been his strategy so far, and it's been working. So
let's go to this call. We got a lot of calls. Do you want to take some more? And
Sure.
Clip or whatever. All right, cool. 978. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hi, my name is Matt from Mass.
Ooh, a third Matt on the show right now. How you doing, Matt from Mass?
Yeah. Yeah, actually, it's pretty funny. I mean, you know, we all have like the most common name. It's pretty difficult for Matts out there, definitely.
Yeah. So
this question is for Jamie. I've been starting the slow process of radicalizing my parents, and I just got into like a discussion with my mom yesterday about like essentially direct democracy, and she was talking about how like, and it's been on my mind for a while about how there's like certain opportunities for direct democracy, you know, like meeting and discussing issues and debating topics, even in like today's world. But like when given the chance, people don't participate in it. She was talking about how she was in a condo association meeting, and how like only like 30% of people show up to something that like directly impacts their life. And I did like kind of tell her that like, I think it's a lot to do with capitalism and productive and reproductive labor being totally put on workers, and they're just exhausted. But do you think that if that wasn't the case, people would take the chance to participate directly and like actively and politically? And like, what does that look like?
Yeah, I think that's a very good question. And it's one that I think about a lot as someone who hangs out on the sort of lower left corner of that semi-useful political compass, which is to say I'm more of a libertarian communist type than an authoritarian communist, or whatever less loaded term the tankies would prefer I use for them. I think what you say is true. If people had more time to spend doing work in their communities and work on themselves and, you know, hobbies, passions in their own lives, whatever, they would probably be more inclined to go to meetings and participate. Also, I think capitalism makes us incredibly atomized and alienated from one another in such a way that participation is de-incentivized. Also, I think people don't always sense that they have a stake in what their local government is doing. I've been to some very poorly attended local meetings in New York City, just community board meetings and the like. I think the community board for all of Manhattan below 14th Street fits in a pretty small room, these meetings, and it's generally populated by a few kind of crazy people with long-running feuds that are hard to understand if you're just tuning in for the first time. So I think if people oh, thank you, I'm glad you're enjoying this. I am too. I think if people had like more of a sense that the government is a participatory thing and that it actually has a connection to their real lives and their material conditions, I think they'd be more inspired to show up. But, you know, on the other hand, I'm not trying to make everybody go to meetings 24/7. I think there's a certain amount of delegation that can still be done. As someone who's done a lot of organizing, I see how tasks flow better when somebody is in charge of bottom lining them. So I think there's room for that at the same time that there's room for direct democracy. But I think you've hit the nail right on the head that capitalism is working against this in so many ways. And I'm going to use the D word now, depoliticization. This is a thing that happens when people have been told their whole lives that change isn't possible, a better world's not possible. The things that happen in government don't really have an impact on your life, whether Democrats or Republicans are in power, and they have heaps and heaps of evidence for that. And I think that's why we've seen a lot of people, I mean, almost half of Americans don't vote. And these are things we're going to need to undo if we want to have, you know, a truly democratic world. What do you guys think?
I think that's on point, especially the part where you said that half Americans don't vote, because that's a real problem. It really is. I mean, I don't know. We can't even get anything, even the very basis of what we want to get done can't be done if people who would ostensibly vote for those things don't. I mean, it just is, you know, I don't know. Again, I don't have any solutions, but we've seemed to have figured out the problem.
Yeah. And I also want to say, like, I'm not against all hierarchies, right? I tend to be sort of an anarchist adjacent communist. I'm only against the unjust hierarchies. And there's a lot of wiggle room in there to argue and debate which ones are justified and which ones are not. But certainly the idea of having people represent you, do the work of governing while you go off and do your own thing. And then maybe you switch, maybe you rotate out. Like I keep idealizing, I don't want to sound like I'm idealizing the Zapatistas as like these magical people or whatever, but I think they have a lot of stuff pretty well figured out in that the Junta de Buen Gobierno, I'm butchering that pronunciation now because I'm nervous about my Spanish. It rotates.
It was good. Don't worry about it.
It heavily rotates the people who are tasked with, making the day-to-day decisions in consultation with whoever shows up to the assemblies. They all share the task of governing between them. And there's no such thing as a professional bureaucrat or a professional politician. This is a collective task that everybody shares among themselves in the community. And I think that would be a much healthier model because anyone knows, like, any average person off the street would probably be a better president than Donald Trump. So this system, it's not sending our best. It's not selecting for the best folks out there.
Right.
Every cook can govern, like Marx said.
All right, Matt, thank you so much for the call.
Thank you. Have a good day, guys.
Sorry if I went on too long about this. It's kind of one of my bailiwicks.
No, I enjoyed it. But I have been holding this in. This bit of breaking news that I just came across while you were talking, Jamie. Jordan Peterson has coronavirus. Yes,
we get a shofar.
True. I can't do. I don't have that ability. We didn't set up a soundboard. We got the phones working, got the AMs going, but no soundboard yet. Maybe next time. But yeah, and apparently this is according to his daughter, so it's a legitimate source.
Well,
and according to her,
it's a close source.
Yes, and according to her, the treatment he took for it to ward it off before he started getting symptoms seemed to have backfired because it just made everything worse, and now he has it really bad.
What was the treatment, did you say?
The treatment was an all-meat diet because that is how you cure all ailments.
Right, that is what they believe, apparently.
Wait, is it not working? Is the all-meat diet not working?
Geez, I can't find that. I don't think they mentioned specifically. He was put on a whole bunch of kind of preemptively.
What about hydroxy?
Antivirals and things, says his daughter.
What about hydroxychloroquine? I mean, everyone knows that that's a hidden secret, and I think Peterson should have probably been on that.
Yeah, he probably should have, but...
Clean your lungs, Jordan Peterson.
Ooh, I like that.
Clean your lungs.
Obviously, Jordan Peterson, we wish you the best.
Yeah, I mean, you could come back and, be a weird public figure again when you get healthy.
Right.
Yeah, we miss dunking on you, man. Like, we start to feel bad for him, and then it's not fun anymore. So
it's true. I can honestly...
Please get healthy so that you can be bodied once more by Slavoj Žižek, and we can all enjoy ourselves.
Right. The Herman Cain stuff from back in the day isn't as fun now. It's so please.
No, it's retired, basically.
Yeah, well, that too. But even going back and looking, it's sort of like, oh, wait, that's really sad what happened to him. His over-reliance on proving that Trump's right, and he didn't have to take care of himself because this whole thing is either a hoax or a democratic overreaction that ended up doing him in, all to show that Trump is right and Trump's words must be correct. It is sad, I think.
He did record one of the best political ads of all time, and I encourage everybody to look it up.
Yeah. It is which one? Are you talking about the one where his campaign manager looks at the camera for really long and takes a puff of a cigar?
Hell yeah, baby.
Hell yeah, that is a good one. There's also, I think there's the Pokemon one, right? Or was that something that was just their campaign theme, I think. Right. I'm getting it all messed up.
We're not
Let's go to some
it.
sound.
You guys just gotta look it up for yourselves. DIY show.
What sound you guys going? Oh, let's play that. Speaking of coronavirus, segue time. Let's play that Trump misinformation clip when he was on the Fox News program Fox and Friends yesterday. He called into the show, and this clip set off a domino effect that reverberated well off of cable television, and I'll get to that shortly. But first, let's play Donald Trump calling into Fox and Friends yesterday.
Big tech versus the White House, Facebook and Twitter taking down the same post from President Trump citing the coronavirus misinformation.
Yeah, Twitter even suspending the Trump campaign account, too.
Ashley Strohmeyer joins us live with how the Trump team is responding. Ashley, good morning.
Good morning, guys. For the first time, Facebook pulled a post from President Trump, and Twitter then removed the same post, as well as suspended his campaign's account. Both tech giants claiming what President Trump said on Fox and Friends Wednesday was misinformation about kids and COVID-19. Watch.
This thing's going away. It will go away like things go away. And my view is that schools should be open. If you look at children are almost, and I would almost say definitely, but almost immune from this disease.
We could stop
a spokesperson for Twitter.
That is, I can definitely say that is not true. There have been children who died from complications due to coronavirus. Very young children, babies, toddlers. It seems to be they're less susceptible to the symptoms, and they are, their immune systems can deal with it better than older people. Yes, that doesn't mean they are immune, and they still are very strong carriers. In fact, studies have shown that they carry it, more so than the strain more so than adults even, and they could pass it along to their parents, their grandparents, their teachers.
They don't care for themselves, right? Right. So I wanted to get the misinformation there out of the way, make sure no one thinks that kids are almost definitely, according to Trump, immune to this. And I just want to point out, you say they don't seem as symptomatic as adults, but there's all these long-term symptoms we're only just starting to see from COVID, from like people who didn't even have a significant bout of it, but all of a sudden their hair's coming out in clumps.
Right.
Like, this is a very weird disease. And I don't know why that's news to people. I think a lot of us, our generation, we weren't around for HIV to just come out of nowhere. So we're not used to the idea that something new can come. So we all just want to think of it as a extreme flu or cold. This is something really weird. And the idea that we're subjecting kids to it, and teachers and their parents, because mainly we need to make them work for money. Basically, we can't just take care of the life's essentials for a while while we get through this. I worry that years from now, we're going to be looking at a whole generation of people scarred by this shit.
Right. And to even add on to what you're saying, there's been people who've had irreversible heart damage and lung damage from this disease. And again, who knows down the road what that's going to do and the further effects. I mean, there's some people, I believe they even they even gave themselves a nickname. I don't recall what it is, but there are people who got coronavirus in March, April, and they are still sick from it, even though the doctors have said that it's gone from your system. They're still dealing with whatever symptoms, whatever residue, I guess you can say, that's still in them. We've never dealt with anything quite like this. And I'm glad you brought that up, Matt. But
I've read that the lasting impact on people's lungs is like a cross between AIDS and SARS, which doesn't sound like a minor thing.
No, it doesn't. And Fox gave away some of those that domino effect I brought up, but there's a little bit more actually. So Facebook and Twitter did remove the clip, that specific Fox and Friends clip that the Trump campaign tweeted out and posted on his Facebook account. And Twitter, though, went a bit further. And I think this is where we're going to have a problem. And again, this is where the whole deplatforming thing and how some of these social networks and social media platforms decide to carry out their rules and policies gets problematic. Journalists, as well as an account run by the DNC that criticized the president's words in that clip, also found themselves suspended because they criticized that clip while also sharing it out. So Twitter also forced them to delete their criticism calling out Trump's misinformation. It's, I don't get that at all.
Why did they do that?
Because they say that the clip spreads misinformation, and there's apparently Twitter doesn't have any policy procedure to differentiate from sharing that clip to actually spread it because you believe it and want people to share it so they believe it too, or spreading that clip because you want to debunk it and you don't want anyone else to fall for it as well. That seems to be a problem. I mean, maybe an argument could be made that that clip being spread in the first place, regardless of the debunking and the criticism, could also still convince people that it's true. I don't know. But I think that I think this now is a slippery slope when it comes to their misinformation policy.
Yeah. It seems to me like this is the result of an algorithm that just identifies that clip and bans it wherever you see it, rather than an individual human being with the ability to make judgments.
100%, yeah.
Twitter, in a statement, defended the takedown of the journalists and the DNC tweet. They said it runs afoul of their misinformation policy.
But see, that's the thing is, okay, so they always just vaguely gesture towards their policy, right? And they do that for all this stuff, so they never have to be specific about this. There's a Swedish word, ombudsman, an official appointed to investigate individuals' complaints against maladministration, especially that of public authority. Now, the New York Times famously had an ombudsperson, and they quit during the Trump administration. My conspiratorial read on that is because they don't want to actually have to account for the type of lies that a certain part of their writership is going to be spewing, so we're just going to eliminate the position entirely.
I would say your speculation is on the mark, Matt.
But to get back to the social network stuff, what they should be doing is, I think they should be policing, but they should not be policing with this type of algorithm stuff. So you should have hired ombudspersons with public profiles, with a history of judgments that you can go, look, okay, they decided to pull down this tweet, and here's their stated reason for that. Especially for these high profile cases, there should be, because absolutely they should not be allowed to operate this sort of thing based on algorithms. It's a complete abdication of responsibility. And like, I know the critiques of, we don't want these tech companies to like be censorious. I understand all that stuff, but they do need, there's some sort of platform management that has to be done, and they need to be specific about it. And they always want to avoid that. Instead, just say, no, look at these policies. Somewhere in this thing is you ran afoul of it. And often they're just lying. And you see people like right-wing provocateurs that get kicked off whatever profile, and they actually write that they didn't probably run afoul of the terms, at least any more than other people do. And so they nurse this like victim complex out it. Just own the things that just forget the idea that there's going to be one size fits all or one algorithm fits all, and make the editorial decisions, hire people to do it, or you shouldn't be a company.
See, that's the problem though, right? What you said right there, make the editorial decisions. They don't want to make the editorial decisions because then they're going to be deemed as a publisher, and they don't want to be deemed as a publisher because then they lose all of their DMCA protections that being a platform provide them. Basically, the laws currently state that as long as they're a platform, it just allows anyone to come on, any internet user come on and say what they say. The platform is not responsible for what a third party says or does.
Well, I mean, look at that, right? DMCA. I mean, blow that crap to hell, right?
Like, well, it also protects a lot of things we like too, to be quite honest, though. So it is, again, it's a gray area.
Yeah, I just think that's like, I don't know. I feel like the First Amendment and stuff, protections like that can probably protect enough of this stuff for the serious things. But I mean, there has to be, I know where they're legally obligated to, but the fact is these shouldn't be allowed to legally exist as they are. So whichever way we're going to attack them, I mean, I think this is a good way.
I mean, there are limits to freedom of speech, right? You can't yell fire in a crowded theater. So why should you be spreading dangerous lies about the coronavirus?
Right, absolutely.
That's not protected speech.
Right. My point with the DMCA, though, is that the reason, being that the DMCA exists, these companies are fine. Let's use YouTube as an example. YouTube is fine with us live streaming this right now because they know that whatever we say, they're not responsible for. And if they receive a report that we do something that's against their policy, then they can take action afterwards. But without them having those DMCA protections, they might not let us live stream at all because it's just easier for them to not have to worry about the legal troubles.
Right. But again, like the problem with the DMCA thing is, and I get your point, but like the quagmire we're in is that that's mainly about intellectual property and playing music and stuff. That's the lawsuits they're worried about. They're not really worried about lawsuits over, a leftist saying we should nationalize the oil industry.
Right. Well,
And
I mean something worse than that, obviously. I mean, they wouldn't even bother because God forbid we said something that wasn't that, that was worse, that would actually get them in trouble legally if they were deemed the publisher who had responsibility over what we said and did on their platform.
but they do, right? Like, you can't be pro-ISIS on this platform.
Right. But what I'm saying is they may not even bother. Like, how much do they possibly make off a leftist YouTube channel? Why even risk the fact that they might say something that's nice about ISIS or spread the good news about ISIS? It's probably not worth it. They don't got much money to make off of us. So let's just not let them stream at all. That's what I mean. I agree with a lot of what you're saying. I just mean, I'm just trying to point out that I sort of see both sides, and I'm not saying DMCA is perfect because obviously it's not, but I'm just saying the good things need to be taken from it, and perhaps a new law can be created with those good things that leaves out the stuff that works against the health of our democracy, really.
Yeah, I will say I do not trust private corporations to protect the speech of leftists, no matter how they're treating right-wing conspiracy theorists. Right. Like, there's no ombudsman out there making sure that the right and the left are treated the same. That ship has sailed a very long time ago. So if we can get some temporary wins by getting folks like Trump and Alex Jones and, various fascists kicked off of these platforms, great. In the long term, I still think we need to democratize control over these new things, which are basically utilities, right? Facebook, there's no substitute for that. There's no competitor. It's a utility. We need to democratize control over them and then decide democratically what the range of acceptable speech is to have on there and the kinds of values that we want to honor.
Yeah. I mean, I guess I also, not to open this up too much, but I do see some arguments for having some, like, in terms of private industries that should have some independence from the state. I think the press has maybe a good argument as any about it. But I mean, overall, 100%, this stuff should be it should be like Ma Bell or something, and regulated that way.
Right. I agree with that.
Can't wait for our hero Democrats in Congress to break up big tech and impose these kinds of regulations.
Do you guys have any? Right. Do you guys have any other sound clips you want to get to, or should we go back to the phones and IMs?
Well, I did a few at the front end, so I'm gonna throw that one back at you, Matt.
No, I did the main clip I wanted to do, that Trump misinfo. So let's go to the callers. Matt, is there any clip you wanted to get to, Mr. Leck?
I mean, I kind of wanted to play the protest at the eviction law firm because I think it illustrates a lot of what I was talking about earlier.
Why don't we end on that so we can leave on a nice note of
good
working together to let's do that.
And the Cory Bush ones are also very inspirational.
Oh right, we should let's get to one of those at least at the end. Let's get to another call or two, and then we'll see how much time we got.
Sounds like a plan.
214. What's your name? Where you calling from?
Hey.
Hey, you're on the air.
I'm calling from Texas. I wanted to know what your thoughts were on the explosion in Beirut, and because I tuned into someone who was doing a live stream that day, and he said the name of the city wrong, and he was surprised that Israel made an announcement that had nothing to do with it. He thought it was spying or something. So I was kind of disgusted by that. So I want, I want international coverage from things like that.
Right, definitely.
From
what I've seen so far, and it's still a story in progress. From what I've seen so far, there were high-level explosive, not devices, explosive
ammonium nitrate.
Thank you. Yes, stored at this port just something like 100 meters from a major residential areas. And clearly the government was not supposed to store things there. And they're looking into this right now.
Basically, it was a Russian tanker that was declared unseaworthy back in 2014. And they just docked there. And a lot of this stuff is hazy. Like the reports I've seen quoted this Russian, like, I guess, captain or something but they weren't able to verify his identity. But anyway, they kept like 1,300 times the amount of ammonium nitrate that was used in the Oklahoma City bombing just in this warehouse since 2014. And the officials knew about it. And there were people that were trying to get it moved, but the government, I guess, was dragging its heels on it. But like it was described as a ticking time bomb. I think somebody even said, like, if this stays here, it's going to level the entire residential area. And I mean, it's a disaster. It's just horrible.
When I first saw that video, I was like, and everyone was talking about it, and I see all these views it's racking up, and I was watching it the first couple of seconds. I'm like, this doesn't seem anything too because it was on the warehouse is on fire at first, and then there's that big explosion, and I'm like, I've honestly never seen anything like that in terms of just the location and how it started, and it wasn't from a device dropping that was meant to be dropped, as terrible as that is, obviously, but I've never seen anything like that. It was just the suddenness and the range of it, and it was just really whoever is responsible, whoever they deem, which we'll probably never know, obviously, who was what politicians or agencies were the source of this dragging of the feet, but heads are going to roll, I'll tell you that much on this, because this is ridiculous that it was just completely avoidable, excuse me, completely avoidable.
Yeah. I mean, given Lebanon's history, there was a lot of the Israel stuff. With the news story of the Russian tanker, I saw some like Russian Russophobic stuff that it was a terror attack by the Russians. But I mean, really, it's a disaster. Like, if I imagine a Russian tanker that's all of a sudden unseaworthy, I start to think of like what's been going on in Russia for the past 20 years. That's their infrastructure to be completely abandoned and ossified. It's like, we're not entirely free of perestroika or whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
All right, buddy. Thank you for the call. I'm glad you brought it up because definitely these topics need to be covered more, for sure. Did you guys see this NRA news where Letitia James, Attorney General of New York, is suing the NRA to literally dissolve it because apparently from looking into their financials, it's just not surprising, but the news of someone taking action to actually force its closure is, to me, it's apparently just really corrupt, just tons of corruption going on in the National Rifle Association.
You don't say.
Yeah, that's shocking.
Wow. I didn't know.
I thought Oliver North would have cleaned all that up.
Right.
Actually, no, that he did try, apparently. And it is Wayne LaPierre and all of his people on the dole at the NRA who worked at this consulting marketing company in Omaha that had all their accounts that were like, no, we're not going to clean this up. I'm sorry.
Wow. Oliver Stone, failed anti-corruption reformer.
Oliver Stone.
Oliver Stone is moderately successful.
Heroes, Oliver Stone and John Bolton.
Too many Matts, too many Olivers, apparently.
Yeah.
Wow.
Brendan, are you a gun guy? That was very you seem prepared for that. Did you research this before?
I just remembered reading a New Yorker long form article that was 40 pages that came out last year about the topic.
Good for you. Reading.
I will be surprised if anything comes of this, to be perfectly honest. But obviously, the NRA is a poisonous force in American politics and should be opposed wherever possible. I also hope Letitia James applies the same level of dedication someday to getting the NYPD under control.
Yeah.
Right. Well, I spoke with her about that, actually, literally. I think I mentioned it last time. So, they seemed very interested. There were a lot of questions and follow-ups with all the protesters who who provided testimony. So, she seems to be taking it seriously, but we all know that, that can happen.
That's the first step,
right.
regardless.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, I mean, all of the reforms that a DA could really do have been tried. I think it's time for more drastic defunding that can really only be enacted by those with the power of the purse. Wait,
Right.
did I just say DA? She's Attorney General, right?
She's Attorney General, yes, AG, yes. I'll read some IMs and then maybe a phone call or two, and we'll get to those last sounds because there's some good IMs here. As this is Joey BFE. As an atheist, I just want to say you guys are doing the Lord's work. Great work, team. Why, thank you. Rick Scott looks like a penis, says, Ohio governor just tested positive for COVID. What? He did? He actually was one of the, at least at the beginning of all this, the lockdowns and everything, in like March and April, he was actually one of the few Republican governors who were actually doing pretty good on it.
Yeah, he took it seriously, Mike DeWine. This is another example, I think, of people being close to Trump's orbit and getting tested and finding out that they have COVID.
Too much testing.
A speech about
too much testing
and God.
Right.
Doing too much testing of the people who are going to be in contact with Trump, and to stop testing those people, let them go.
Right. Automat Lek, were you aware that MR is corporate news? That's a reference to your little tweet back and forth.
I got doxxed.
Right? Yeah.
I'm a Democratic operative.
Right. I always knew that about you, Matt, but I accept you anyway.
Standing desks don't pay for themselves.
Yeah, maybe I should get on the payroll.
Actually, they kind of do.
Have, better lighting.
They kind of do pay for themselves if you ever a tax person.
Disco Stu says, I'm sure conservatives will take the NRA news responsibly and not descend into apocalyptic conspiracy mongering. Absolutely. Of course. They're taking it very well right now, I'm sure. Congressional baseball fan says, highly encourage the real fans to get into Pac-Man's chat and heckle him. Yesterday, I told him, that's the last Pac-Man message I'm going to read. Rube Davin, Matt's right about Warren being the type to take the cognitive test to prove she's coherent, but the right plays what Biden is doing, ridiculing the idea of even having to take it. If you can't tell the difference between a lion and an elephant, I don't know what to tell you. I think that kind of insult to Trump plays well. Yeah, I mean, what does Biden have to gain out of taking one of those tests? I think that's absolutely correct. Yeah. Like you said, Matt.
Nobody respects the test. They went over some of the questions on Chapo, and it's pretty easy, although Matt Christman did flub a few of them.
Well,
he's got a very unique brain. He's exempt from normal testing.
But that could be the thing too, with that test. It's testing like normal range of people, right? You could be someone who's unique but still be completely cognitive, but I don't know. Barry Bush voice, Matt twice, and Puckerberry Finn. Okay, I guess that's a name throwing out, tossed out there.
Oof, gosh, we need to stop this.
Headbanger, Matt Bender. Yeah. All right, I guess I'm looking through these IMs. Think that's is Matt. Oh, this is from Champagne Commie. Is Matt a popular CIA code name, or what's going on here? I'm just asking questions. Also, I sub to MR from all 12 of my burner accounts.
Oh, thank you.
Hell yeah.
Trumpy Bear says, I looked it up and it looks like 10,000 YouTube subs is going for around $400. Not that bad, actually. All right, let's go to
fight bots with bots.
Right. Let's actually, I do want to make sure we get to that Cori Bush audio, because I think her win is fantastic and it makes me very happy. I mean, she was Justice Dem's first project, I guess you can say, in terms of trying to elect a upstart progressive to Congress by taking on an establishment Democrat. And Brandon, you have any of those clips? You have that clip, excuse me?
Do you want to pick one? 6 or 7?
You pick, Jamie.
5 or 6.
Me? Oh,
I don't have the sound sheet in front of me right now. That's why.
I don't know, 6.
Dealer's.
making sure that we bring home a $2,000 a month UBI that's retroactive, that will last for a year. But that $2,000 a month, this is for COVID-19 relief, that $2,000 a month does not mean take money away from social programs that we have right now. We have to put more money into that, but then also a reinvestment in our school system, taking that money that was taken out of the federal education system and put into private prisons, defund that. We need to go and get that money back and put it into our school system.
Oh God, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. I mean, she's spotlighting something that I think is really important in conversations about UBI, which is if we want one with actual leftist liberatory potential, it cannot be used to attack the welfare state. It has to be in addition to universal social programs. And I think she hit the nail on the head with that.
And
absolutely.
Go ahead, Matt. I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, like, as long as we've been having UBI conversations on this show, we've been saying the other thing you need to make sure happens is decommodifying the essentials to live life. Because if you don't do that, then the rentiers in society are just going to soak up the UBI funds. And I mean, we're going to see a lot of that. If we get a UBI like $2,000 in today's structured economy, you would see a lot of that. Landlords are going to be set, right? I mean, but again, like that's better than people being evicted. Right. But I mean, I love the way she focused on that. And then she focused on the defund argument too, specifically drawing it to recent policy decisions to, take it from education into prisons. I mean, she's great. And people talk about, I see people nurse knife wounds to the back from AOC quite a lot. And AOC didn't endorse Cori Bush. And the endorsement strategy of progressives and the left needs to get a lot better in general. But if you want to make AOC better, having someone like Cori Bush in there is going to do a lot more than your tweets are, because someone that can take better positions in AOC, or right, like the better candidates we have in there, the better the ones that we already have in there are going to perform. And if the squad never grew bigger than the 3-4 that we had, then like 20 years from now, they'd be garbage politicians. So like influencing this with new people that are like even closer to the grassroots, I think it's just such good news in a world of bad news.
Right. I mean, the squad is growing. I mean, we got Cori Bush, we got Jamal Bowman, Mary Newman, I think, I think that's her name, right? Marie Newman. Yep. And who else? I mean, I guess you could count some people who've been in Congress even before there was an official squad, like Rep. Jayapal. Yeah, it's growing. And the thing about Cori Bush's messaging on UBI, like you mentioned, it's rare to see it. The messaging from I guess Congresswoman elect would be. Is she technically a Congresswoman elect, even though she just won the primary, but there's still a general election to?
Not quite.
Yeah. Well, hopeful Congresswoman.
We could think of her that way.
Yes. You don't hear that messaging from people in office. You just don't. That's messaging that you hear on leftist podcasts and live streams like here. Like, it's good to see that messaging get into the main. I mean, it needs to, because it's otherwise you got the UBI messaging from Yang Gang types that don't differentiate, or actually not just don't differentiate, make no qualms about what they plan on doing to social programs in order to fund their UBI.
That's right. And I would not be surprised if Cori Bush knew some of the history of the welfare rights movement and the connection between the struggle for a universal basic income and the struggle against white supremacy, against patriarchy, against capitalism, against all these things, and the idea of the welfare state and of a universal basic income as a universal strike fund that increases worker power and has been shown to, like, at the height of it in the 1960s. So I cannot wait to hear more from her and see what she does.
Yeah, exactly. 100%.
And the other thing is remember when Pelosi said the thing about, there are only 4 votes? And what was infuriating about that is, they represent the desires of a lot more than that in this country among the people. But on a fundamental level, it was true. They were powerless. And the only all the messaging and all the different media appearances they go on is a huge asset. Because they're frankly, the Lincoln Project doesn't have their Democrats that can do this, right? They might get Biden cabinet positions, but they're not able to get candidates that have this natural grassroots following behind them. And I don't know, it's just unexpected news, I guess, going into this, which is, it just seemed like we were getting hit with crap for a while. So, yeah.
Do you want to go to? Let's play that. I just want to make sure we get to it. So let's play that. The protest clip. If you have that queued up, ready to go, Brendan, while we're playing clips.
All evictions gotta stop, no lawyers, no cops. All evictions gotta stop, no lawyers, no cops. All evictions gotta stop, no lawyers.
Yeah, that is just awesome to see people come together to try to stop these eviction lawyers from basically carrying out these evictions. We've seen, Jamie, you had a clip from last week, I remember, where there were a group of protesters, was it in New Orleans? Where basically they formed like a protest, a human wall around the eviction courts to basically block the lawyers from entering the court to evict people. This is taking it even a step.
That's what we in the business call a hard picket.
Right.
When you actually form a line that people cannot get through, no matter how hard they try to Red Rover on through.
Right. This is the even smarter evolution of that, I think, because eventually, I think if you keep waiting outside the courts, cops all across the country are going to get a load of what's going on, and they're going to start dispersing people from the courts and putting up security systems. Because those are off governmental buildings, but it's a little bit harder for them to enforce that in small lobbies and hallways inside corporate office buildings where these lawyers are actually doing their work. So I think this is a interesting new evolution of that.
That's right. There's power in numbers, there's power in collectivity, there's power in direct action. And if a bunch of people can get together and physically block the lawyers from entering their offices where they work on evicting people from their homes all day, if they can block off the eviction courts, if they can form a ring around a building and protect someone from being physically tossed out of their home, as we have seen a few times already, just very recently in Brooklyn on Dean Street, this happened. We're going to see a lot of results, and I think it's going to trickle up into the legislative realm as we put more and more pressure on it. But I think if you want to talk about politicization in ways that really impact people's lives, I think for a lot of people, like we're talking about half people who don't vote, it's always going to be a harder sell trying to convince them that something so many layers divorced from their day-to-day existence is relevant, such as electoral politics. Whereas if you are face-to-face with the representatives of capital, your boss, your landlord, the cops, that connection becomes a lot more apparent for a lot of people.
All right. So, guys, what do you want to do now? Is this the show for today, or what do you think?
I think that might be the show for today.
Read some IMs, get out of here.
Time just flies by. There's a few more. I guess I could read one or two.
Time flies when you're vibing with your homies.
Right, yeah. A lot of these actually are about Pac-Man, so I'm gonna.
Oh my God, what have we done? I am so sorry that I ever mentioned his name. I think we need a moratorium on that, because you know what? We're just gonna do our own thing, and excellence will prevail.
All right. Really cool says clean your lungs.
So we're gonna lose.
Clean your lungs with bleach, Jordan Peterson, imagining a gif of Yosemite Sam saying Yosemites and refuges. What? Okay. Angler. Okay, this is an interesting one, but maybe not one for the last one of the final IMs. How do you feel about Nathan Robinson's ongoing rants against Marxism? Maybe we could touch on that next week. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I don't think he has ongoing rants against Marxism. I think he said
it's just the one
dumb thing, and he probably regrets it now. But I don't know. I could ask him and see.
I mean, I respect Nathan Wade as a current affairs. I think he's very good at it, but I think he goes off of Marx quite a lot. And it's never about Marx. It's like Marxists. And all I'd say is like, I've had enough people tell me to read the Bread Book to make me say that the sort of like fundamentalist literate thing is not just confined to Marxists, but there's also that in any other tradition that you might have on the left too. And I think actually it does do a disservice to Marxist scholarship, which I think is the best bookshelf around, to call it a cult. That would be my take on it.
Yeah, I mean, there's people who are culty about it, but I think there is something valuable to be taken from almost every leftist tendency that has existed throughout history. I mean, just picking one and saying that this is the tendency that's going to work now, this is how we get socialism, is just an utterly stupid thing to do, considering the historically unique conditions that we face. And I think, people obviously come into the left through different ways and different tendencies, but I think it would do anarchists a lot of good to read Marx, and it would do Marxists a lot of good to engage with the work of anarchists. And I realize there's some overlap between that. There's plenty of Marxist anarchists out there, but I just hope that we can weave all these ideas into a beautiful synthesis and not be turned off to the works of Marx and Lenin just because they were used in some examples of actually existing socialism in the 20th century that maybe left something to be desired.
Right. We could also, I think we could all agree that Nathan has a wonderful sense of fashion style. I think he's. Oh, yeah.
I don't hate on that.
I actually enjoy it. I'm being serious. Me, of all people, I'm not going to talk about people's fashion sensibilities. I love people who have their own unique style. I mean, I wear a black band shirt and short black jeans, crust punk status all the time. People say I like dress like Bart Simpson because it's the same outfit every day. I love people who have that unique Bart Simpson look. When you see them, you're going to get that fashion style you know and love them for. And that's Nathan.
Yeah, you gotta express yourself. I think Nathan is very fully expressed in the way that he dresses, and I think it's fun. Also, I just don't think it doesn't matter how people dress, right?
Yeah,
when we're talking about leftist politics, unless politics are 100% aesthetics to you, in which case you are not a materialist and you are not a Marxist.
Right. Well, Jamie, Matt, Brendan, you were all looking beautiful today. And it was a pleasure, as always, to join you guys this week. I'm looking forward to doing it again. This was a wonderful fun half. I hope our listeners all enjoyed. I hear all these great things about how we are what did I say last week? A wonderful quadrulio or whatever I said. It's a quartet. Yes, I know. Yes, I'm just referring to what I said. YouTube.com/Matt Binder, folks. I'm live tonight at 9:30. Guys, whatever you guys want to end it on, and then what a day. What a show.
Joe at 10:30 tomorrow.
Joe at 10, right. The majority, this is probably more important than me plugging my own thing. The majority report at 10:30 tomorrow. I'm going to repeat what Brendan just said.
Take your CBD. Go to bed early.
See everybody.
Peace.
It might take all the strength I got to get to where I want, but I know somehow I'm gonna get there. I wasn't looking when I just got caught between the truth